Chapter 769. The countless black and white flames below continued to merge and fuse. Then, the whole scene became extremely strange and complicated. The color of the flame kept changing, and then gradually became transparent. Yang Dingtian opened his eyes wide. He wanted to find the slightest difference from the bottom of Endless Eternal Peak. But he failed. The scene before him was exactly the same as the bottom of Endless Eternal Peak. It was just that the scale was tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of times bigger. Therefore, at a glance, the entire border of the abyss, which spanned hundreds of thousands of kilometers, had become sparkling and translucent. The scene was truly shocking. But the question was, would Yang Dingtian jump? Yang Dingtian faced the same problem as Yao Qi. But the situation before him was even worse. Yao Qi was thinking, what if it was teacher Yongxi's trap? Meanwhile, Yang Dingtian had already witnessed the scene of Yao Qi jumping down to her death. Now, Yang Dingtian truly understood Yao Qi's feelings back then. Once he retreated, once he didn't jump, he would lose the chance to obtain the void fire forever. But that wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that he would lose the chance to know the answer forever. Hence, even though Yao Qi had a hunch that it might be teacher Yongxi's trap, he still jumped down. Then, he died. So, how should Yang Dingtian choose? He had once said something, or rather, he had quoted someone else's words. It wasn't that he couldn't gamble with his life, but he had to gamble when he had no way out. He had to gamble when he was in a hopeless situation. So, was he in a hopeless situation? Of course, it could also be said that Yao Qi had died because the border of the abyss was too small. The border of the abyss was huge, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of times bigger. But didn't that mean that he would die more easily? Should he jump? If he jumped, he might die. If he didn't, he would lose, forever. Then, Dongli had already walked forward towards the end of the border of the abyss. He was getting closer and closer. Although he couldn't see, he could feel time. The boundless void fire below continued to become transparent. It became more and more transparent. In the end, it was no longer a sparkling and translucent crystal, but a complete void. There was nothing, transparent to the extreme. Dongli was already at the edge of the abyss. He took a deep breath and prepared to jump down. If Yang Dingtian didn't jump, Dongli would jump. Brother Yao Qi, now I truly understand your state of mind. Even if he knows that it's a fatal trap, he might still jump in, Yang Dingtian thought to himself. Then, he gritted his teeth and jumped into the endless abyss. Yang Dingtian was not dead. This was extremely strange. It was clearly exactly the same as below the Endless Eternal Peak, just that the scale was countless times larger. Perhaps it was even more transparent, reaching the extreme of nothingness. However, Yao Qi died as soon as she jumped down. And Yang Dingtian jumped down, safe and sound. The moment he jumped down, he had a very mysterious feeling, as if he had traveled through time and space. He continued to fall, he had no idea how deep he had fallen. When he finally stopped, he realized that he was in a very mysterious illusion. It was as if he was in a transparent house, a house that was absolutely transparent. As the walls were extremely transparent, it didn't feel like there were any walls, but he could still feel its existence. The house was dark and there was no light in it. However, the transparent things seemed to give him a feeling of brightness, so he fell into a very contradictory situation. In short, the room gave Yang Dingtian a feeling that it was extremely sealed and safe. It was as if as long as he hid inside, even if the world was destroyed, even if the universe exploded, he would be safe and sound. However, the most important thing was, could this be considered as swallowing the space-splitting fire? Why didn't he feel anything? There wasn't any mysterious fire in his body, and his cultivation didn't increase at all. Moreover, how the hell was he going to get out of here? At this moment, whoosh, a white flame appeared in front of Yang Dingtian's eyes. Looking at it from such a close distance, although the white flame was strange, it was quite beautiful. Moreover, it instantly lit up the room that was filled with a mysterious feeling. Then, a black flame lit up beside it. Of course, it was also thanks to the existence of the white flame that Yang Dingtian discovered the black flame. Then, the black and white flames started to mix. From black to white, to gray, and finally to transparent. Yes, it was extremely transparent. How to describe it? It was like a space door. As if it was completely independent of this world. As it was extremely pure and transparent, there was a boundary between it and the surroundings. It turned out that the so-called swallowing space-splitting fire wasn't the one that swallowed the entire border of the abyss, but this one. There was a feeling of, I'm only going to drink 1 out of 3,000. Then, how should he swallow it? Moreover, the strange thing was that if it was in the past, the dark mysterious fire would have been restless. To it, the heaven and earth mysterious fire was a perfect tonic, and the dark mysterious fire treated it as its life. However, at this moment, the black-green mysterious fire was dormant in the depths of Yang Dingtian's energy reserve, and it didn't move at all, as if it wasn't interested in the space-splitting fire in front of it at all. Yang Dingtian's gaze fell on the seemingly invisible space-splitting fire, and he was puzzled. How should he swallow it? Such a small space-splitting fire should be the same as the million-spirit demonic fire and the demon-spirit demonic fire. Therefore, Yang Dingtian carefully injected a stream of mysterious qi. Huff! Instantly, the space-splitting fire in front of him stretched out its head and connected with Yang Dingtian's mysterious qi directly. Boom! Then, an endless amount of energy suddenly exploded. In an instant, it filled the entire special room. Then, all the entrances of Yang Dingtian's mysterious meridians were completely opened. This endless amount of space-splitting fire energy crazily poured into Yang Dingtian's mysterious meridians and into his energy reserve. Such a crazy level of energy was even many times more powerful than the demon spirit demonic fire. At the moment when the endless amount of energy poured in, Yang Dingtian's body disappeared instantly. It was as if his entire body had disappeared in an instant, leaving only his consciousness. Then, his energy reserve expanded crazily. Almost instantly, his entire divine sense sank into nothingness. Because he had broken through to the 8-star Great Grandmaster. Then, just a few minutes later, his energy reserve expanded crazily again. Boom! His energy reserve exploded again, and his entire body and divine sense sank into nothingness again. Yang Dingtian broke through again and became a 9-star Great Grandmaster. Every small level after 9-star Great Grandmaster and 9-star Great Grandmaster would become extremely difficult. Going from a 9-star first-class Great Grandmaster to a 9-star second-class Great Grandmaster was no less than going from a 1-star Great Grandmaster to a 2-star Great Grandmaster. Then, the amount of energy needed to go from a 9-star first-class Great Grandmaster to a 9-star second-class Great Grandmaster might exceed that of a 1-star Great Grandmaster to a 2-star Great Grandmaster. After breaking through to the 9-star Great Grandmaster, the endless amount of energy crazily poured into Yang Dingtian's energy reserve. In just a quarter of an hour, it filled Yang Dingtian's entire energy reserve. Yang Dingtian's energy reserve expanded again. Boom! Very forcefully, it entered nothingness again. Yang Dingtian broke through to the 9-star first-class Great Grandmaster. Then, endless energy crazily poured in again. A quarter of an hour later, Yang Dingtian broke through to the 9-star second-class Great Grandmaster. In this way, the time needed to break through each level began to double, and the energy needed also began to double. Yang Dingtian was right about one thing, but also wrong about another. After passing the 9-star Great Grandmaster, the increase of each level was far more than the increase of 1 to 2 stars, or even 2 to 9 stars from 8 stars. The amount of energy needed to break through each small level was an astronomical figure. However, the increase in combat effectiveness was not that exaggerated. It was not as fast as when breaking through to the stars. Because at this time, the entire energy reserve was crazily accumulating energy to prepare for breaking through to the half-saint. In this way, Yang Dingtian crazily devoured the energy of the void-cracking fire in this completely independent room. He kept breaking through and leveling up. 9-star second class. 9-star third class. 9-star fourth class. 9-star fifth class. 9-star sixth class. 9-star seventh class. 9-star eighth class. 9-star ninth class. Every time he leveled up, the time and energy needed increased exponentially. The time needed to reach the final 9-star ninth class could even be said to be very long. Moreover, after breaking through to the 9-star ninth class, although he was still crazily devouring the energy of the void-cracking fire, however, the entire energy reserve seemed to have become a bottomless pit. No matter how much energy entered, it did not have the slightest reaction. It did not even tremble a little. It was as if the entire energy reserve had become a funnel. It was not that the energy of the void-cracking fire was not enough, but next, there would be endless 9-star ninth class great grandmasters. Infinite, it just could not break through to the half-saint. In order to break through to the half-saint, there must be a qualitative change. Therefore, Yang Dingtian was not surprised at this result. In the past, every time he devoured the mysterious fire, Yang Dingtian could not estimate how much his cultivation would break through. But at this time, when he devoured the void-cracking fire, Yang Dingtian could easily know how much he would break through. It was a 9-star ninth class great grandmaster. Previously, Yang Dingtian was even worried that he would not be able to reach this level. However, the energy of the void-cracking fire was far more powerful than he had imagined. It easily allowed him to break through to the 9-star ninth class great grandmaster. However, the remaining energy disappeared without a trace as if it had entered a funnel. Then, he did not know when. Yang Dingtian could not feel the energy of the void-cracking fire pouring in, but it did not seem that its energy had been exhausted and disappeared. It was because it kept pouring in, but the energy reserve did not feel anything, nor did it splash any ripples. Therefore, he instinctively felt as if the influx had stopped. However, Yang Dingtian still did not move at all. He just sat there quietly, motionless. Then, time seemed to have come to a standstill. Or, it was flowing away quickly, but Yang Dingtian fell into a state of silence, as if he was asleep, but also not asleep. After an unknown period of time. In short, Yang Dingtian woke up. At this time, he was no longer in that mysterious room, nor was he at the edge of the abyss. Instead, he was sitting on the dark matter continent of death. It was really strange. He was clearly in the abyss just now. Why did he appear on the dark matter continent of death now? Did his body move after devouring the void-cracking fire? Yang Dingtian could not help but look up. At first glance, he saw the edge of the abyss, about 100 miles ahead. The endless abyss border. Yang Dingtian understood. The place where he was at the edge of the abyss last time. However, it was completely dead now and had become the dark matter continent. This death continent was constantly invading, spreading, and devouring new continents that were not completely dead yet. In other words, the blooming of the void-cracking fire just now. In fact, it was the entire death continent devouring the second era. The result of the energy release of the void-cracking fire was the death continent that was 100 miles wide and hundreds of thousands of miles long. Of course, in another way. The energy of the void-cracking fire was the last release of the death continent of tens of millions of square kilometers. After the release, these tens of millions of square kilometers would become the death continent and the dark matter continent. The edge of the abyss meant death, the death of the entire world. In other words, every 200 years, the void-cracking fire would be released, which meant the death of tens of millions of square kilometers of land. Yang Dingtian reached out and touched it. The entire dark matter continent was absolutely flat, as if it was flatter than a mirror. And he could not feel anything when he touched it. He suddenly pulled out his emperor-grade soul sword and slashed down. There was no reaction because this was an indescribable substance that was dead to the extreme, so it could not be hurt. Then, Yang Dingtian attacked with the mystic fire again, but there was still no reaction. Taking a deep breath, Yang Dingtian's heart became heavy. But then, he thought of something very important. Where did Dongli go? Just now, when he was about to jump into the abyss to devour the void-cracking fire, Yang Dingtian beat him to it. So, the void-cracking fire was snatched away by Yang Dingtian. In that case, he should still be on the Death Continent. He should be nearby. But there was no trace of him. Of course, this was the extremely dark Death Continent. Even if he was here, he could not see him. Moreover, this was a vacuum. Yang Dingtian had to rely on elixirs to survive, so he could not transmit any energy waves or sound. Unless the two of them bumped into each other face to face. So, even if he was not far away, Yang Dingtian would not be able to find him. Unless he suddenly released a flame to illuminate the surrounding Death Continent. It should be known that Yang Dingtian's cultivation was not inferior to Dongli's at all. Plus, there were 4 mystic fires in his body. It should not be a problem to kill Dongli. But now there was another very, very important thing. He had already devoured the void-cracking fire, but he had not used its mysterious attribute, nor had he seen its special ability. There were countless resentful spirits in the million-spirit demonic fire. The demon spirit demonic fire could immobilize the enemy and create an energy barrier. Then, as the second most powerful mystic fire in the world, what special and terrifying ability did it have? Chapter 770. Yang Dingtian instinctively wanted to use the void-splitting fire to see how powerful the second arcane fire was. However, after some hesitation, he suddenly felt that this was the Death Continent and there was an endless amount of dark matter under his feet. Perhaps it would be more appropriate to use the void-splitting fire outside. Therefore, Yang Dingtian turned back and walked in the direction of the dark door according to his memory. Although the Death Continent in the first era was extremely dark and one could not even see their fingers in front of them. However, Yang Dingtian still walked back to the dark door and touched it. It was indeed an ice-cold dark door. Yang Dingtian was about to push the door open when he suddenly stopped. If Dongli was still in the dark world, then killing him here might be the best result. If he was still in there, then there were only the two of them here. Yang Dingtian should have a great advantage in killing him. Therefore, Yang Dingtian's eyes turned cold and he slowly turned around. Then, he suddenly pulled out his emperor-grade soul sword and slashed at the sky of the dark world with an earth-shattering bolt of lightning. Pow! The lightning that was tens of thousands of meters long instantly lit up the dark world within a few hundred miles. Then, Yang Dingtian used the arcane fire to shoot back and suddenly flew up into the sky. Looking for Dongli's figure. This huge lightning almost tore apart all the darkness within a few hundred miles. The entire space was as bright as day. Yang Dingtian was high up in the sky and could see everything within a few hundred miles below. However, he did not see any figure of Dongli. This place was extremely flat, even flatter than a mirror. There was no hiding place at all. Since Dongli was not here, did that mean that he had already left? Or was he already dead? Because he could not see Yang Dingtian jumping down, he would also jump down. However, Yang Dingtian had already swallowed the void-splitting fire, so there was nothing for Dongli to do. Therefore, it was very likely that he would die if he jumped down. Yang Dingtian was still not at ease. He released another bolt of lightning and saw even more clearly in the space domain. Still, he could not see any figure. However, far, far away, Yang Dingtian seemed to see an incomparably dark mountain. After the continent of the first era died, it kept collapsing, and the gravity kept increasing, so it would instinctively form an extremely flat surface. However, there was a tall mountain in the distance of the dark world. It was taller than any mountain Yang Dingtian had ever seen. Perhaps it was several 100,000 meters tall. Yang Dingtian estimated that this source was at least a few thousand miles away, or even tens of thousands of miles away. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian had the urge to go to the dark mountain. Perhaps the most extreme secrets of the entire world were hidden there. Or perhaps, the so-called Lord of Chaos was somewhere else. That was because there was no other place in the world that was more mysterious and powerful than this mountain. However, Yang Dingtian quickly gave up on this fantasy. This was impossible to reach, no one knew how far it was, perhaps tens of thousands of li. The deeper they went, the higher the gravitational force. The gravitational force of that mountain was perhaps indescribable. However, Yang Dingtian wanted to try the ferocity of this dark world. Therefore, he went deeper into the dark world again. He entered 100 miles in the direction of the mountain. This 100 miles was still very easy because the gravitational force was only about 10 times. He went another 100 miles. At this time, the gravitational force was 30 times. Of course, this wasn't considered strenuous for Yang Dingtian. However, the troublesome thing was that his body needed more and more energy, so the speed of taking pills was increasing. When he went 300 miles, the gravitational force was already 100 times. When he went 500 miles, the gravitational force was already 200 times. In other words, Yang Dingtian was carrying nearly 50 to 60,000 kilograms. At this time, Yang Dingtian could no longer walk as fast as he could. When he went 800 miles, the gravitational force was already 500 times. At this time, Yang Dingtian's load had reached 150,000 kilograms. Of course, this load was still not a big problem for him. However, his body and meridians seemed to be somewhat unable to bear it, so he already needed to use his qi to provide a counterforce, otherwise his body would have been injured. At this time, that huge mountain was still extremely far away. Yang Dingtian knew that he should give up. This was just an exploration. Perhaps, he would come to conquer this huge mountain in the future, but definitely not now. With his current ability, perhaps he could go 3,000 miles. However, once he went that far, he would not be able to return. Looking at the huge mountain in the distance, Yang Dingtian took a deep breath, then turned and left. A few hours later, Yang Dingtian arrived in front of the door of darkness again. He did not immediately open the door, because going 800 miles into the dark world consumed a lot of his qi, so he had to replenish it immediately. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if he encountered an enemy after entering the main hall. Of course, with Yang Dingtian's current strength, as long as he did not encounter a half-saint expert, he had nothing to fear. After taking a qi-gathering pill, Yang Dingtian sat down cross-legged and devoured his qi. Now, Yang Dingtian was about to use Shiman Ningning's highest-level qi-gathering pill, the 9th grade qi-gathering pill. Moreover, he had to take at least several pills at a time to fully recover his qi. 1 hour later, Yang Dingtian had completely recovered his battle mystic qi. Then he took a deep breath, prepared to be invisible, flash, and fight, and was about to open the dark door. However, another thought came to his mind. How could this dark door seal the entire dark world? It should be known that this dark world was extremely large, possibly dozens of times larger than the entire human countries. Therefore, Yang Dingtian burst out a bolt of lightning to see this dark door clearly. Bang! The lightning suddenly tore open the darkness, illuminating the surrounding 100 miles. Yang Dingtian saw it clearly. This was indeed a lonely door, but on both sides of the door, there were endless dark energy walls, connecting the entire world and completely separating the dark world from the human countries. If the door was destroyed, the wall of darkness energy was destroyed, the Hall of Heads would be destroyed as well. Then, what would happen to this world? Only God knew. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian felt that this world was really as dangerous as an egg. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the dark door. Inside the hall, it was still extremely quiet. There was no one in sight, and Dongli was not inside. After Yang Dingtian returned to the hall, the first thing he did was to breathe hard. Because in the dark world, there was a complete vacuum, and one had to rely on pills to survive. After Yang Dingtian came out, the dark door slowly closed. He could not help but reach out to push the door again, only to find that after coming out, the dark door could not be pushed open at all. Yang Dingtian tried to push the second colorless door and found that it could not be pushed open either. At this moment, Yang Dingtian was really curious. Behind the first dark door was the dark world, a world that was completely dead. Then, what was behind the second colorless door? It should be the second world that was destroyed but not completely dead. The ruins of the Naga Empire should be there too. But, how should he enter? Yao Qi swallowed the space-splitting fire not to become stronger, but to obtain the treasures of the Naga Empire. But, if he could obtain the treasures of the Naga Empire with the space-splitting fire, why didn't Wendian go? However, in this matter, Yang Dingtian was instinctively willing to believe Yao Qi. Because, for the treasures of the Naga Empire, Yao Qi was even willing to risk his life. With his intelligence, he would definitely not do something that was not worth it. The reason why Wendian did not obtain the treasures of the Naga Empire could only mean that he did not have the time, or that he did not meet any conditions. But soon, another answer appeared, which made Yang Dingtian shudder. What if Wendian obtained the treasures of the Naga Empire? Or, after he lost the battle with Nihility Piao Ling, he used the space-splitting fire to escape to the ruins of the Naga Empire? Yang Dingtian realized that he had made a huge mistake. That's right, according to his conjecture, Yongxi was possessed by Wendian's soul. But, he was only a part of Wendian's soul, the soul of the paralyzed Wendian in the primal chaos world. Also, did Wendian possess Yongxi before or after he swallowed the space-splitting fire? But it did not matter if it was before or after. Wendian must have possessed Yongxi's body before he went to the ruins of the Naga Empire. Hence, Yongxi did not know much about the space-splitting fire. Because it was very likely that after he obtained the space-splitting fire, he did not have time to experience it before that part of his soul entered Yongxi's body. Then, Yang Dingtian started to recall the scene in the Nether Ghost City. Earth's Wendian's soul clone tore open a space-time gate and came from hundreds of thousands of miles away. 200 years ago, Wendian definitely did not have this ability. Also, where did the Queen Devil Queen and Crown Prince Li Ming go? Netherworld was defeated, Dongli was defeated, and even Yongxi Wendian was imprisoned. Yet, these two people did not appear. This meant that the Devil Queen and Li Ming had more important things to do. Hence, Yang Dingtian came to a conclusion. The space-splitting fire and the treasures of the Naga Empire were definitely not nonsense. And Yongxi Wendian did not know much about these things. The one in charge was still Earth's Wendian. At most, Yongxi Wendian's status was higher than Dongli and Netherworld. This was because he was in charge of the Little Western Paradise, Dongli was in charge of the Naga Empire, and Netherworld was in charge of the human countries. The highest boss was still Earth's Wendian. In fact, that half-step sage-level body still belonged to Earth's Wendian. Then, Yang Dingtian made a very, very bold guess. Would that Earth's Wendian's body be in the ruins of the Naga Empire? Or on the Dark Mountain? Yang Dingtian shook his head and threw away the thoughts in his mind. He focused on the problem in reality. Where did Dongli go? Did he die? How long had he stayed in the world of darkness? Then, Yang Dingtian felt that it was time to try out the space-splitting fire ability. Hence, he took a deep breath and summoned the fourth heaven and earth Xian flame in his body, the space-splitting fire. Whoosh! A white flame floated out. Whoosh! A black flame floated out. Then, the black and white flames began to merge. From gray, it became transparent and colorless. Then, this flame began to compress, becoming thinner and thinner, and its surface area became bigger and bigger. When it was transparent to the extreme, it seemed to have become a jumping door. A door that was more than a meter tall. It was very mysterious and beautiful. It was like a glass flame without any thickness, floating in the air. Yang Dingtian had been influenced by many movies and novels on Earth. At first glance, he felt that this was like a space door. Hence, Yang Dingtian carefully put his hand deep into the door. Then, something strange happened. His hand disappeared. Moreover, he couldn't see his hand in the air behind the thin transparent door. It was as if his arm had completely disappeared from this world. Where did this space door lead to? Hence, Yang Dingtian carefully put his head in. Instantly, it was complete darkness, a darkness that couldn't be seen. Moreover, it was extremely suffocating, without any air. Also, his whole head instantly became incomparably heavy. His head, which was at most 10 kilograms, instantly became more than 10,000 kilograms. In an instant, Yang Dingtian felt that his whole head was about to explode. Hence, he immediately retreated and left the flame space door. He understood. This space door led to the world of darkness. In other words, this void-splitting fire was a space door that could throw anything into the world of darkness. This was an extremely heaven-defying ability, and also an extremely terrifying ability. This meant that Yang Dingtian could enter the world of darkness at any time. It also meant that Yang Dingtian could throw anyone into the world of darkness. Of course, once thrown in, it meant death. There was no air or anything inside. Moreover, there was an extremely terrifying gravity inside. It seemed to be completely random to any location in the world of darkness. Therefore, even if Yang Dingtian was fully prepared, he didn't dare to rashly enter. Because he didn't know where he would be sent to. If it was tens of thousands of times the gravity, Yang Dingtian would probably die the moment he entered. Moreover, it was hard to say whether he could come out of this space door. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian's imagination was running wild again. If his cultivation was strong enough, he could directly create an incomparably huge space door trap when the battle started. Then, no matter how many enemies there were, as long as they entered this trap, they would all die without a doubt. Just when Yang Dingtian was immersed in infinite reverie. Suddenly, he felt weak, and the combat qi in his sea of qi was about to be exhausted. Yang Dingtian was astonished. This void-splitting flame spatial door actually consumed so much mystic qi. A space door of more than 1 meter in size consumed the qi of a 9-star 9th grade great grandmaster in just 1 or 2 minutes. This was too extravagant. Therefore, Yang Dingtian hurriedly withdrew the void-splitting fire, sat cross-legged on the ground, swallowed a qi-gathering pill, and began to restore his combat qi. Then, another thought came to his mind. The demon spirit fire, ranked 4th, had 2 functions. The netherworld ghost fire ranked 3rd in the world, and it was just a shadow fire, but it had 2 functions, one was immortality, and the other was an out-of-body experience. Then, the void-splitting fire ranked 2nd in the world, did it have other terrifying functions? Also, if the void-splitting fire could lead to the ruins of the Naga Empire, how should he get there? Just like that, Yang Dingtian pondered while recovering his battle mystic qi. At this time, in the sea area of the Forbidden Continent outside the Skull Hall, almost all the masters of the Nether Sea had withdrawn, leaving only 2 great grandmasters. It seemed that the Nether Sea's task was over. This task was the void-splitting fire. Whether it was a success or a failure, it was over. At the same time, Dongli was riding a demon spirit ray, flying towards the capital of the Snake Men Empire. His eye sockets were no longer empty. Instead, there were 2 deep and shining eyeballs. These eyes were not his, and he didn't know who they came from. However, these eyes should be completely decorative. Although they could move, and even with eyebrows and eyelids, they could make expressions. But as a basic function of seeing things, they could no longer do that. At this time, Dongli's eyes were dull and fanatical, looking in the direction of the capital, looking in the direction of Queen Hai Xian. He was also going to meet his final fate. Chapter 771. Dongli didn't enter the capital directly. Instead, he flew to the north of the Snake Men Empire. In the huge refinery in the north, he asked for a darkness crystal, an incomparably tiny darkness crystal. Even with his status as the prime minister, he could only get one that was the size of a speck of dust. After that, he arrived at a picturesque valley. This was his manner. He wanted to continue what he didn't finish previously, which was creating the darkness profound flame. This time, it should be enough, right? Because he already had the heaven and earth profound flame, the void-rending flame. At that time, Dongli also jumped down. Less than half a second after Yang Dingtian jumped down, he also jumped down. In fact, from the start to the end, he didn't even know about Yang Dingtian's existence. Moreover, he didn't die after jumping down. His situation was almost exactly the same as Yang Dingtian's. At the start, he fell into the boundless abyss and entered a sealed and transparent space. After that, a white flame and a black flame appeared in that space. These two flames started to fuse, turning into a completely transparent flame. After that, he used the most traditional method to devour this void-rending flame. Naturally, this process was told to him by Eternal Shiwentian. However, he was someone who couldn't see. It wasn't easy for him to complete this series of things. But in the end, he still succeeded in devouring it. He was worried that Yang Dingtian would snatch the void-rending flame away at the last moment, but it didn't happen. After successfully devouring it, he left. He didn't care about Yang Dingtian at all. Of course, the time he took to devour the void-rending flame was much shorter than Yang Dingtian. After leaving the world of darkness, he first went to the Silver Capital to say his goodbyes. After that, he returned to the human countries with Mu Dan. That's right, Yang Dingtian and Dongli both devoured the void-rending flame. Other than the time they took to devour it, everything else should be the same. In that case, how many void-rending flames were there? Was it 2 or more? No idea at all. Maybe no one in this world knew. Even Wentian didn't know about this matter. Of course, Dongli did not make a breakthrough after devouring the spatial rending flame. He was still a 9-star grade, 9 martial grandmaster. However, for him, cultivation was not the most important thing. Conquering the Naga Empire was the most important thing. This was his life's mission and the goal of his existence that he gently summoned the void-rending flame. Immediately, a white flame floated out, followed by a black flame. The two flames began to fuse and become transparent. Dongli released this tiny darkness crystal. Its size was about 100 times larger than the darkness profound flame that Yang Dingtian created back then. The void-rending fire had yet to turn into a dimensional door, but it had already started to burn the dark crystal. Then, the energy of the mystic flame was quickly devoured. And this dark crystal was gradually getting bigger. Dongli began to increase his profound qi and continued to release the void-splitting fire. Before the transparent flame turned into a spatial door, it also had an unparalleled temperature. The dark crystal continued to devour. Dongli was very familiar with the process. He continued to inject energy and mystic fire and found the limit of the dark crystal's engulfment. 80%. 90%. 95%. 98%. 100%. Finally, the balance was reached. At this time, the energy released by the void-rending flame had reached the same level as the dark crystal. Then, the mystic flame and the dark crystal were in a stalemate. One side was burning desperately, the other side was devouring desperately. In the end, neither side could do anything to the other. In the end, the stalemate reached its limit. Finally, the greed of the dark crystal won the balance. The darkness profound flame was suddenly devoured. Then, this dark crystal suddenly swelled to twice its original size. However, before it could start to feel proud. Bang! The entire dark crystal suddenly exploded. Then, a black flame abruptly emerged. The darkness profound flame. The real darkness profound flame was 100 times larger than the one that Yang Dingtian created in the Sea of Hades. Of course, compared to Yang Dingtian's black-green mystic flame, it was only 1% or even smaller. Even so, the void-rending flame in Dongli's body had already been used up by half. In his energy reserve, only half of the void-rending flame was left. However, he didn't care at all. To him, the void-rending flame was only used to create the darkness profound flame. In his mind, the darkness profound flame was much more powerful and useful. He felt this darkness profound flame tightly, afraid that it would suddenly disappear like the last time. However, this didn't happen. The darkness profound flame was still burning, but because it was floating in the air, its energy was dissipating bit by bit. Dongli hurriedly kept it in his energy reserve. Without any mishaps, this darkness profound flame entered his chi sea obediently. Ha 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 ha, instantly, he looked up to the sky and laughed. He finally succeeded, finally succeeded. The bad luck of being blinded by Yang Dingtian was swept away. Queen Hai Xian was his, the Snake People Empire was his. After laughing wildly, he suddenly flew into the sky, sat on the demonic spirit ray, and flew towards the direction of the capital. Hai Xian, I'm coming. From today onwards, I won't let you escape from my hands. Yang Dingtian can die now. When he successfully swallowed the void-rending flame, he directly went to Indu and suggested that Yang Dingtian didn't need to live anymore, so he could die. This was because the demigod descendants of the Snake People Empire and the Little Western Paradise could all be created by Dongli alone. Wu Yu thought for a while and said, wait until you have successfully conquered Queen Hai Xian. Therefore, as long as he succeeded in conquering Queen Hai Xian, then, Yang Dingtian's death would come. Not only did Dongli want to conquer the Snake People Empire, he also wanted to conquer the entire demon fox race. And even Wu Yu, at this moment, Yang Dingtian was in the main hall. He realized that he couldn't get out. It was as if the Skull main hall had special care for the entire human nation, so this door was tightly shut. Only humans could open it from the outside. It wasn't like the Little Western Paradise, where anyone with the fallen silver dragon bloodline could enter and leave. It wasn't like the void-rending flame, where one could casually create a spatial door to enter the dark world. This was troublesome. Who knew when people would come through the green door of the human race? Perhaps for years, or even decades, no one would come and go. Of course, Wu Yu from the Sea of Hades was an exception. Now, he could only hope that Mu Dan hadn't returned to the human nation, or that the people from the Sea of Hades often traveled between the human nation and the Little Western Paradise. This way, he could get out in the shortest time possible. At this moment, the silver door of the Little Western Paradise suddenly opened. Yang Dingtian was stunned, and immediately went into stealth mode. It was actually Yao Ling, that girl. Yao Li's daughter, Yao Li's sister, and Shadowless's first love. She really ran away. She still had to go to the human nation to find Shadowless. She went directly to the human green door and pushed it hard, but it didn't budge at all. This simple-minded fox girl, after not budging the first time, actually pushed with all her might. She thought that she didn't have enough strength. If you want to push, so be it. Why did you have to bend over so high? Yao Ling's clothing was different from the fox noblewomen. It was very primitive. On her upper body, she wore a beast skin bra. On her lower body, she wore a beast skin skirt. And on her feet, she wore beast skin boots. Of course, this girl's body wasn't as perfect as Jia's, but she was very fit. Especially her small waist, so she was very energetic. Plus, with this skimpy outfit, her snow-white long legs and small waist were exposed. Also, she was bending over to push the door. Not only was her posture seductive, but she was also completely exposed. Yang Dingtian immediately lowered his gaze. This was Shadowless's first love after all. Shadowless was not only his subordinate, but also his elder. This one-track-minded girl, after pushing the door for a whole hour, finally realized that she couldn't push it open. Thus, she sat under the green door and waited for it to open. She didn't have any intention of leaving. This time, young Ding Tian was in trouble. Could it be that he had been invisible all this time? A few hours later, Dongli flew into the capital of the Snake Men Empire. Then, he landed in the Pyramid Hall. Even though he was the Prime Minister of the Snake Men Empire, he couldn't see Queen Hai Xian directly. He had to report to her. He came to the front of the female official Viper Z, revealing a wicked and charming smile. Releasing a unique aura of the dark mysterious flame, he said, "Miss Z, please report to Her Majesty that Dongli wants to see her. Tell her that Dongli has succeeded." Viper Z's beautiful face trembled slightly, and then she said, "Please wait a moment, Prime Minister." Then, she swam into the hall to report to Queen Hai Xian. Dong Li's eyes were filled with greed as he stared at her back. He had always coveted Viper Z's beauty. As long as he could conquer Queen Hai Xian, all the beauties of the Snake Men race would belong to him. After a while, Viper Z came back and said, "Prime Minister, Her Majesty is waiting for you in the bedroom on the top floor." Dongli's mind was suddenly shaken, and then he flew to the bedroom on the top floor. It was actually the bedroom. Her Majesty's thoughts were as clear as day. Queen Hai Xian, with a magic-like body, wore a golden wrap dress. As a result, her voluptuous body was extremely alluring and seductive. At the same time, her beautiful face emitted a soul-stirring radiance. Dongli finally succeeded. She had been waiting for this day for many, many years. Not only did she need a man who could make her fall in love with him, but she also needed a man who could be controlled by her. Therefore, although young Ding Tian could make her fall in love with him, but she would definitely not choose him. Because she couldn't control young Ding Tian, and she might even fall in love with him. But Dongli was different. This man with evil ways was crazily infatuated with her. Moreover, he was extremely greedy. She knew Dongli's ambition. He wanted to conquer the entire Snake Men Empire by conquering her. He even coveted all the beauties in the Snake Men Empire. Queen Hai Xian didn't care about this at all. As long as Dongli could be controlled, it was fine. As for controlling Dongli, Queen Seaheart was very confident in her ability. Because, in the bottom of his heart, Dongli resented the Temple of Annihilation. He especially hated why Wentian didn't allow him to kill young Ding Tian. She had enough confidence to make Dongli choose to approach her and not the Temple of Annihilation. Moreover, once Dongli became the only person who could make the Snake Men Empire and the Fox tribe give birth to a demigod descendant, his ambition would grow crazily. At that time, it would be unknown whether he would still listen to the orders of the evil ways. At this moment, the door of the bedroom opened, and Dongli slowly walked in. At first glance, Queen Hai Xian could see the difference. Firstly, Dongli's eyes were different. They weren't his own eyes. Secondly, his body was permeated with a dark energy. This energy made her palpitate. That's right, this dark energy made her heart beat violently, and she felt a throbbing. Then, the temperature of her delicate body started to rise slightly. This was the energy of the darkness mystic flame. It was indeed able to stimulate the women of the Snake Men race. Dongli didn't panic. Instead, he knelt down and said, "Your subject, Dongli, pays his respects to your majesty. I have returned victorious." "Oh, is that so?" Queen Hai Xian said in a hoarse voice, "Then, come and try. Everything will be revealed on the bed." Dongli smiled evilly. Every part of his body seemed to be singing and burning. The day he had waited for had finally arrived. How long had it been? The day had finally arrived. He was going to possess the most powerful woman in the world, the most beautiful woman. After Queen Hai Xian finished speaking, she lazily lay down on the bed. She used her arm to support her chin, allowing her delicate body to lie on her side. The undulating curves of the mountains and rivers were even more captivating. Dongli kowtowed and said, "Before going to Mount Wu with your majesty, I would like to make a request." "Speak," Hai Xan said. Dongli smiled and said, "After we are done, we will immediately kill Yang Dingtian." "How about it? You can kill him personally." Hai Xan was slightly taken aback. Then, she said, "All right. Since I already have you, there is no need for him to live." Dongli smiled proudly and kowtowed. "Then, your majesty, please enjoy my service." Then, Dongli got up from the ground and slowly walked towards Queen Hyexian's jade bed. He was still not anxious. Because he already had something that belonged to him, there was no need to be anxious. His hands wandered in the air above Queen Hyexian. Although he was touching the air, it gave off an incomparably seductive feeling. Then, he moved closer and greedily sniffed Queen Hyexian's unique and enchanting scent. "God, this is the most beautiful woman in the world. She finally belongs to me." Then, Dongli knelt on the bed and slowly kissed Queen Hyexian's lips. Suddenly, Queen Hyexian's cold voice sounded. "Dongli, did you succeed or not? Why do I not feel aroused at all?" Dongli was shocked. Chapter 772. How is that possible? Dongli said in shock, I have already obtained the void-splitting fire, and I have already successfully birthed the darkness mystic flame. Queen Hyexian said, "I know. I have already smelled the dark energy in your body, and it made my heart throb." Dongli's face lit up with joy, and he said, Then isn't it possible?" Queen Hyexian said, "But, that's all. After that, I don't feel anything anymore. Even when you are close to me, when you want to touch and kiss me, that throbbing feeling has completely disappeared. Even all the pores on my body have started to close up, rejecting your closeness." Dongli said, "How about I release the darkness mystic flame, and let you feel its energy?" Then, Dongli summoned the darkness mystic flame from his chi vessel. Instantly, a dark flame burned in his palm. Queen Hyexian looked at the darkness mystic flame, and her beautiful eyes suddenly became blurred, and her heart throbbed. What a beautiful darkness mystic flame! As if it was the most beautiful and most moving thing in the world. Instantly, Queen Hyexian's breathing became hurried again, and her snow-white neck flushed red. Dongli was overjoyed, and he wanted to hug Hyexian and kiss her. But, just as he got close, Queen Hyexian's body instantly turned cold, and from inside to outside, an extreme coldness and resistance emerged. Dongli's heart was about to burst, and he said sorrowfully, "Your Majesty, please give me a chance. I will definitely succeed." Then, Dongli knelt on the bed, and tears flowed down his face. Hyexian saw him like this, and sighed, and said, "All right, I will give you one and only chance." "Thank you, Your Majesty, thank you, Your Majesty." Dongli climbed up from the bed, and wanted to use his methods to the extreme. He was born to conquer Hyexian, so his methods were naturally to the extreme. In the past, he had never failed to win against any woman. He knelt at the feet of the Sea Heart Queen, gently massaging her feet that were covered in crocodile leather boots. As soon as Dongli's hand touched the skin on her feet, her whole body suddenly trembled. A feeling of disgust instantly welled up in his heart, as if he had been licked by a poisonous snake. She couldn't take it anymore and kicked out with her other leg. Instantly, Dongli was sent flying by the kick. Then, she got up and wiped her feet where Dongli had touched. She put on her crocodile shoes and left the bed. "I'm sorry, Dongli. I can't do it." Queen Hyexian said indifferently, "Us snake people are different from you humans. You human women can be touched by many men. Whereas for us snake people, unless it's our own spouse, otherwise the feeling of fear and disgust after being touched by others is totally irresistible." Taking a deep breath, Queen Hyexian said, "Now it seems that the darkness profound flame can only make my heart palpitate, but is unable to make me fall in love." The reason why Yang Dingtian can make me fall in love is because of other reasons, and not the darkness profound flame. So your efforts are in vain. After saying that, Queen Hai Xian turned around and left. As for Dongli, it was as if he had been struck by lightning as he collapsed onto the ground. If a person suffered a huge blow, then he would enter a temporary state of numbness and completely lose any reaction. And at this moment, Dongli had suffered an unprecedented blow. If the void-splitting fire had been snatched away by Yang Dingtian, then this blow wouldn't be so huge. But he had already obtained the void-splitting fire and had already successfully given birth to the darkness profound flame. Why was it still not working? Why was it still not working? Since the darkness profound flame couldn't make the snake people fall in love, then why did he have to successfully give birth to the darkness profound flame? What was the meaning of all this? Was the heavens toying with him? Was the heavens toying with him? Yu Ming's mission in this life was to deal with God's spokesperson, Yang Dingtian, and to control the human countries. And Dongli's mission in this life was to control the snake people, to make the snake people fall in love. After Yu Ming was defeated in the duel with Yang Dingtian, even though his cultivation was 10 times higher than Yang Dingtian's, he still gave up all hope and directly sought death. Even if he was bestowed with a first-grade evil spirit and allowed to break through to the half-step sage realm, he had also lost all his ambitions and goals. Every day, he would bring Ling Wu on a scenic tour and think of all ways to make Ling Wu stronger and defeat the desire of a second-grade evil spirit. Then what about Dongli? The failure this time basically meant that he had completely failed. It meant that Dongli's mission in this life had completely failed. It meant that his birth had lost all meaning, and it meant that he had completely accomplished nothing. Then what was the meaning of him living? Immediately, Dongli completely understood why Yu Ming would seek death wholeheartedly. Once one discovered that his existence had no meaning, then anyone would possibly lose the motivation to live. Pfff, a mouthful of blood was suddenly spat out. Dongli laid on the ground dejectedly as he stared blankly at the magnificent dome. What should I do? What should I do? Seek death wholeheartedly like Yu Ming? No, no. Heavens, why are you treating me like this? Why are you treating me like this? Why is Yang Dingtian able to obtain all your favor? Why is he the one who gets all the good things? No matter what he wants or doesn't want, you've given all of them to Yang Dingtian. Why is it that the goal that I've been fighting for my entire life is within Yang Dingtian's reach and discarded like a worn-out shoe? I can't accept this, I can't accept this, I can't accept this. I will definitely not be as useless as Yu Ming. I will definitely not bow down to fate. Yang Dingtian, just you wait, I'll definitely make you beg for death. I can't make Hai Xian fall in love, but I can at least humiliate your wife. Your Wu Maji, your Shimen Yan Yan, your Ning Ro, all of your women, I'll torture them all. I'll definitely let you have a taste of this kind of unbearable pain. I've already thought about my next mission. It's revenge. I'll use all of my strength to take revenge on you, Yang Dingtian. Actually, Queen Hai Xian was also very dejected. Dongli had failed. Could it be that in this world, only Yang Dingtian could make her fall in love and make the snake people give birth to a demigod descendant? Could it be that the heavens had decided that she could only choose Yang Dingtian? Could it be that the heavens had decided that Yang Dingtian was her nemesis? She really couldn't accept this. High Priest. What should I do? Queen Hai Xian said, facts have proven that Yang Dingtian is the only man in this world, the only man who can transform our snake people empire. Without him, our snake people empire will die. Queen Seaheart's words were not wrong. Males and females of the snake people race could of course mate and give birth to offspring. However, that was when the females of the snake people race had yet to take human form and were still in their snake form. At that time, the snake people race was at their most unintelligent and weakest. Then, the descendants born would become the most ordinary sea serpents. Moreover, the sea serpents on land would never have a future. Once the females of the snake people race were over 200 or 300 years old and began to gain intelligence, and when they showed some human characteristics, they would definitely not marry the males. That meant that if there was no young Dingtian, the snake people empire, as an intelligent race, would completely disappear. Because, after all, they were no longer an underwater empire. Their snake people race was the last bloodline left from ancient times. Of course, the snake people race had a very long lifespan, but as long as they did not transform into Naga, they would die one day, maybe 3,000 years, maybe 5,000 years. At that time, the snake people empire would be completely destroyed. What was the point of a snake people empire dying even if they were strong? What was the point of ruling the world? Previously, Hai Xian could still pin her hopes on Dongli, but now, this hope was completely shattered. High Priest, what should I do? Queen Hai Xian asked. The Snake People Empire's High Priest was silent for a moment, then slowly said, Your Majesty, you can actually negotiate with Yang Dingtian. Help him fight against evil ways and help him agree to the War of Extinction. In return, he will help you and the Snake People race give birth to enough offspring. Queen Hai Xian said, Doesn't that mean that we have to compromise? I don't want to compromise, especially not to him. The High Priest said, Your Majesty, there is one thing that you have forgotten. We can still live for a few thousand years, but Yang Dingtian can only live for 200 years at most. After he dies, will his opinion still be important? He can't still control our Snake People Empire after he dies, right? Queen Hai Xian was stunned. That's right, Yang Dingtian could only live for 200 years at most. This important point had been forgotten by him all this time. No matter what she had promised him, no matter what he controlled when he was alive, as long as he died, everything would disappear. At that time, what could restrict her? 200 years might be a long time for humans, but to her, it was just a small fragment. Because her life was really too long. Without further ado, Hai Xian decided to immediately go to the human countries to negotiate with Yang Dingtian, or rather, to borrow his seed. After bidding farewell to the High Priest, Queen Hai Xian did not say anything to anyone and secretly left the Snake People Empire. She did not go to Cloud Sky City, but first went to Zhongjing and appeared in front of the Council of Light headquarters as Mi Dai Nun. When Yun Zhenu saw this familiar face, he was stunned. She really couldn't believe her eyes. Chapter 773. Master. Yun Zhenu shouted in disbelief. At this moment, Queen Seaheart was no longer as radiant as before. Instead, she was dressed in a plain robe, reserved and dignified. Of course, her beautiful face could not be concealed. She had regained her Saintess Hai Xian look. Newer. Hai Xian touched Yun Zhenu's face and said gently, Seems like you are living a happy life. Yes. Yun Zhenu smiled embarrassedly, Master, are you here for me? Or are you here for business? Hai Xian was slightly stunned, Is there a difference? Yun Zhenu said, If you are here for me, I will bring you to my room for a private talk. If you are here for business, I can only ask sect leader Dongfang or city lord Qin to receive you. Hai Xian said, No, I am here to see you. Then, Yun Zhenu brought Hai Xian to her room and brewed tea for her. Actually, Yun Zhenu's emotions were very complicated. There was a saying that one's bottom decided one's head. She was Yang Dingtian's female officer. She would definitely think from the standpoint of the Council of Light. Hence, she knew that her master was now the queen of the Snake Men Empire. They were enemies. Furthermore, she could vaguely guess that her master had done something to her. Seeing Yun Zhenu brewing tea, Hai Xian suddenly said, Newer, have you not been taken in by Yang Dingtian? Yun Zhenu's face turned red. Why? He doesn't accept you. Hai Xian asked. Yun Zhenu shook her head, I think it's good to be like this. Hai Xian remained silent for a moment. She watched as Yun Zhenu finished brewing the tea and poured a cup for her. She took a sip and said, Master will be your backer and allow you to marry young Dingtian. You will also become the master of the Cloud Heaven City's valley. Is that okay? Yunjuna's hand stopped, then she shook her head and said, Master, I just want to live the life I have now. I don't want to marry into Cloud Heaven City's valley, at least not now. Hai Xan asked, why? Yunjuna said, because I don't want to be restricted. Besides, I'm living a happy and fulfilling life now. I don't want to change. I'm afraid of change. Hai Xan frowned slightly. Then, Hai Xan smiled and said, Noor, what do you think of an alliance between the Naga Empire and the Council of Light to resist evil ways? Yunjuna's heart skipped a beat. She was well aware of Yang Dingtian's attitude toward the Naga Empire, which was full of vigilance and even hostility. He also knew that his master was completely ambitious and had even tried to imprison Yang Dingtian. Now, what exactly did his master mean by saying these words? Instantly, Yunjunu could not help but be cautious. She smiled and said, Master, I'm just a female official. I don't have the right to express my opinion on such a big matter. You have to talk to Yang Dingtian personally. Queen Hai Xian's beautiful eyes flashed with a haze. Then, she smiled and focused on drinking her tea, not saying anything else. Then, the room fell into an awkward silence. Hai Xian wanted to negotiate with Yang Dingtian. Instinctively, she looked for Yunjunu, hoping that she could help. But now, it seemed that Yunjunu was full of vigilance and resentment towards her master. It was impossible for her to be of any help. At this moment, in the Skull Hall, the demon spirit was still waiting behind the green door. Yang Dingtian was still hiding behind, quietly waiting for the door to the human kingdom to open. He had been waiting here for a few days. Damn it, no human had entered the hall, so the door had not opened. The demon spirit had been waiting impatiently for a long time, but she was not willing to give up. So, she laid on the ground and fell asleep. Once she slept, she was sprawled on the ground. Her posture was very bold, causing Yang Dingtian to lower his eyes and not look at her. Just when Yang Dingtian and the demon spirit were completely unprepared. Suddenly, the green door to the human kingdom opened. A familiar figure suddenly flew into the Skull Hall. It was Dongli. Yang Dingtian could tell at a glance. He was still alive and had just come from the human kingdom. It seemed like he was going to enter the little western paradise. The demon spirit who was sleeping suddenly woke up. Seeing the door open, she was overjoyed. She did not even wake up and rushed out. The door to the human kingdom would close quickly after it opened. So, Yang Dingtian hesitated for a moment, then rushed out like lightning. He wanted to kill Dongli, and the opportunity was very good. After entering the Skull Hall, he would fall into the spiritual illusion of the taboo continent. So, he would not be able to see Yang Dingtian. It was a good opportunity for him to launch a sneak attack. However, Dongli's cultivation was similar to his. Even if he launched a sneak attack, it would be difficult to kill him in one hit. Because, almost at the moment of the sneak attack, Dongli would immediately wake up. At that time, the door to the human kingdom would have closed. For the time being, it was more important to leave this place. After Dongli entered the Great Hall of Skulls, she woke up after only half a second in the spiritual illusion. Obviously, he knew the key points of the taboo continent's illusion. Every time, he could escape from the illusion in the shortest time possible. However, at this time, Yang Dingtian and the demon spirit had already left. The green door to the human kingdom had also closed. After the demon spirit rushed out, she quickly flew towards the east. Yang Dingtian, still invisible, followed closely behind. Soon, the demon spirit met two Nether Ocean's grandmasters. Then, this simple-minded demon spirit was stunned. Not only did she not avoid them, she rushed forward excitedly and said, "Hey, are you Yang Dingtian's subordinates? Do you know where he is? Do you know how to get there?" Yang Dingtian was completely speechless. Did this girl think that any human was his subordinate? The two Nether Ocean's Grandmasters' expressions changed. Then, one of them said, "May I ask who you are?" The demon spirit said, "I'm the daughter of the Silvermoon clan's leader from Little Western Paradise." The Nether Ocean's Grandmaster smiled and said, "That's right. We are Lord Yangdingtian's subordinates. We were ordered to guard the entrance to the Taboo Continent's sea." The demon spirit said, "That's great. Tell me, how do I get to Yangdingtian's home?" "Oh right, do you know Shadowless?" The Nether Ocean's Grandmaster said, "Lord Shadowless from Yinyang School. We know each other. Is that okay? I'll bring you to Lord Yangdingtian. How about it?" "All right," the demon spirit said. Just like that, the daughter of the Silvermoon clan's leader, Yao Li, was about to be abducted and sold the first time she entered the human continent. Yang Dingtian was truly speechless. Yao Li was stubborn, but at least she still had intelligence. This sister of his was completely being sold. She even had to help count the money. Just like that, Yang Dingtian watched as the Nether Ocean's expert took the demon spirit away. And at the entrance to the Taboo Continent's sea, there was only one Nether Ocean's Grandmaster left to guard it. After the demon spirit and the Nether Ocean's Grandmaster left, Yang Dingtian lightly flicked his finger. Pa! A demonic sky-splitting lightning struck the Nether Ocean's Grandmaster's head. Without any ability to fight back, this Nether Ocean's Grandmaster directly fainted. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Yang Dingtian directly grabbed him and quickly chased after the Nether Ocean's expert who abducted the demon spirit. A full 600 miles away, Yang Dingtian caught up with the Nether Ocean's expert who abducted the demon spirit. He had already succeeded. Because the demon spirit had already fainted, he directly carried it on his shoulder and flew in the direction of the Nether Ocean. For this kind of beginner-level Grandmaster, Yang Dingtian was completely able to kill him in one move. In an instant, he flashed behind him and slammed his palm down on his head. Just as the other party reacted and was about to counterattack, he was already heavily injured and directly fainted. Yang Dingtian carried the two Nether Ocean's experts and the demon spirit in his other hand and directly flew towards the northwest continent. In the end, he discovered that the demon spirit's eyes were wide open, revealing a look of horror. It turned out that she didn't faint, but she couldn't move. At this moment, in her heart, the human kingdom had already changed from a beautiful place to a place of evil. The people here were too sinister. They were even more sinister than the people in Little Western Paradise. Just now, the two middle-aged men were already bad enough. Now, this young man had killed the two middle-aged men and snatched her away. Obviously, he was even worse. She didn't know what would happen if she fell into his hands. Instantly, the demon spirit was even more horrified. In Little Western Paradise, she was completely fearless. She even dared to assassinate the chairman, Yao Qi. However, after entering the human continent, she didn't know why, but she instinctively felt a sense of weakness, the kind of uneasy feeling when entering an unfamiliar environment. She wasn't afraid of death, but what if this dangerous human wanted her? Of course, she had already forgotten that humans were unable to make the demon fox race go into estrus. Before flying into the northwest continent, on the familiar route, Yang Dingtian met the demon vulture king Aja. During this period of time, it didn't dare to approach the Taboo Continent's sea region. Therefore, it would hover above the surrounding sea surface every day, waiting for Yang Dingtian. After seeing him, it flew over happily and desperately rubbed against Yang Dingtian's face. Riding on the demon vulture king Aja, Yang Dingtian placed the two experts of the Netherworld Sea aside. After that, he stretched out his hand to touch the demon spirit's wrist and inserted profound qi. He discovered that she had been poisoned. It felt like a neurotoxin that had sealed her meridians and entire body. However, it wasn't life-threatening. Yang Dingtian didn't have a way to detoxify the poison, but he could forcefully break the seal on her profound meridians. He directly inserted profound qi and broke the seal on her body. After regaining her mobility, the demon spirit suddenly screamed and desperately clutched her chest. I'm warning you. I'm the daughter of the Silvermoon clan's patriarch. Your human king, Yang Dingtian, is my good friend. Don't touch me. Yang Dingtian was speechless. After the demon vulture king Jia heard it, it instantly screamed. Miss Demon Spirit, I am your friend, Yang Dingtian. After hearing Yang Dingtian's words, the demon spirit was instantly stunned. Really? Really? Yang Dingtian. Great. The demon spirit directly rushed up and hugged Yang Dingtian's neck. Shadowless is your subordinate, right? Hurry up and take me to see him, okay? Okay. Yang Dingtian. However, in the human countries, men and women shouldn't touch each other. Shadowless is my elder. It's not good for you to hug me like this. The demon spirit stuck out her little tongue and released Yang Dingtian. Then, she stared at him curiously. Why do I feel that your tone is very familiar? A lot of people say so. Yang Dingtian. Oh. The demon spirit said. Yang Dingtian. Miss Demon Spirit, as far as I know, once you enter the human countries, you will quickly turn into a demon fox shape. It's difficult to stabilize your human form for a long time. Well, I know. The demon spirit said. But that doesn't matter. However, the human countries are really not a good place. Since I came in, my cultivation has been declining. Yang Dingtian rejoiced in his heart. This might be the god of chaos's protection for the human countries. The demon fox clan of Little Western Paradise couldn't stay in the human countries for a long time. Otherwise, they might really launch a large-scale invasion. Yang Dingtian touched Azeo's neck and said, Did you tell Yan Yan and the others that I went out to do something? Tell them not to worry. Demon Vulture King Azeo nodded. Yang Dingtian. Then what did you say? You can't speak. Demon Vulture King Azeo waved its claws and rode in the air. Immediately, Yang Dingtian was filled with admiration. As a flying mount, Azeo was truly ambitious. Not only did it learn to understand the primal chaos language, Chinese, and a small amount of English, but it even knew how to write. Wow, your bird is so powerful. It can understand human language. Can you give it to me? The demon spirit shouted. Yang Dingtian was speechless. Demon Vulture King Azeo rolled its eyes for a while and resisted the urge to throw her into the sea. Please, I'm a demon vulture, not a bird. Also, your IQ is not as high as mine. You want to be my master? Keep dreaming. Yang Dingtian landed in Cloud Sky City, but he could only stay for a short time. Because of the secret report, Queen Hai Xian was in Zhongjing. Although she was with Yun Zhenu, her target seemed to be Yang Dingtian. The news of Queen Hai Xian entering the human countries completely shocked the entire Council of Light. Almost all the experts of the Council of Light came out. They were loose on the outside but tight on the inside, guarding the key points. As for Dugu Shao, he had been secretly guarding the vicinity of Cloud Heaven City. Yang Dingtian was also shocked. As the queen of the Naga Empire, Hai Xian had never left her capital. What was the reason for her to come to the human countries? So, Yang Dingtian took the demon spirit, rode on Demon Vulture King, and flew to Zhongjing at the fastest speed. He just didn't know if Shadowless was in Zhongjing or in the East Continent. 12 hours later, Yang Dingtian landed in Zhongjing. At this time, the entire Council of Light headquarters was on guard. When Dongfang Minmi saw the demon spirit, he couldn't help but be stunned. Who was this important person? Yang Dingtian actually brought her with him. Master, where's Uncle Shadowless? Yang Dingtian asked. In Yinyang School, Dongfang Minmi said. Yang Dingtian, ask him to come to Zhongjing as soon as possible. This woman beside me, if I'm not wrong, should be Master Shadowless's lover. Suddenly, Dongfang Minmi almost turned into a wooden statue. Half an hour later, Yang Dingtian secretly met with Queen Hai Xian in his room. Chapter 774. Yang Dingtian, Dongli has failed. This was the first thing Queen Hai Xian said when she saw Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian immediately revealed an inquisitive gaze. He did not say anything, nor did he say why Dongli had failed. The power of the darkness immortal flame can make our hearts throb, but it is not enough to make us fall in love, Hai Xian said. So, you may be the only human who can make the snake men fall in love. Yang Dingtian? Maybe not. Back then, the soul-leaving palace had successfully impregnated Queen Poisa without any intimate contact. Yang Dingtian, who was a rare commodity worth hoarding, did not reveal any special expression. He still looked at her calmly. So, let's talk, okay? Queen Hai Xian said. Yang Dingtian said, please speak. Queen Hai Xian said, my snake men empire will fully support you against the evil ways and help you win the battle of world destruction. You will help me give birth to the next generation of the snake men race and let the snake men empire pass on. Yang Dingtian thought about it. He did not refuse or agree. He said, then what are the specifics? Queen Hai Xian said, of course we have to talk about it one by one. First, you have now unified the entire human countries, except for the Vulture Palace and the Sea of Hades. All the experts of my Snake Men Empire will move out and work with you to get rid of Wulingzi of the Vulture Palace. This way, you can completely unify the human countries. Yang Dingtian said, then what should I pay in return? Queen Hai Xian said, give Dugu Aoshuang to me. Yang Dingtian's face suddenly twitched. Queen Hai Xian's first sentence had directly pierced Yang Dingtian's reverse scale. Yang Dingtian said, then it seems that we do not need to talk anymore. Queen Hai Xian said, I only asked you to hand Dugu Aoshuang over to me. I didn't say I was going to kill her. After all, she is my sister's flesh and blood. Although she is a failure, I feel that it might be better for her to be by my side. In exchange, you've unified the entire human nation. I think this is a very good deal for you. Yang Dingtian shook his head and said, Your Majesty, you should know that I never trade with people. No matter if it's Dugu Aoshuang or someone else who's even more insignificant. Queen Hai Xian looked at Yang Dingtian with lingering interest, then sneered, then you don't want to hear the second one? Yang Dingtian, you can listen, but don't have any illusions. Queen Hai Xian smiled and said, the second condition is that I will borrow your child. In return, I will help you seal the entrance to the human gate in the Skull Hall. Only in this way, the demon fox race in the Little Western Paradise will not easily enter the human nation. You also know that before you break through to the half-sage level, you can't seal this door. This door belongs to the Netherworld Sea. If you and I work together, we can seal it. What if I refuse? Yang Dingtian said. Queen Hai Xian stretched out her hand and pressed Yang Dingtian's lips, saying, don't refuse so quickly. I'm afraid that I won't be able to control myself and will hurt you. Then, Queen Hai Xian slowly stood up and said, I know that it's very difficult to make someone submit with empty words. I need to exert a certain amount of pressure, so I'll give you time. If I exert too much pressure on you during this time, please forgive me. Then, Hai Xian gently bent down and kissed Yang Dingtian's lips. In an instant, her entire body trembled. Her heart was in a daze, and a flame ignited in the depths of her heart. It was so easy for her to fall in love with him. She didn't even need to do anything. Baby, I'll wait for your reply. Hai Xian gently pinched Yang Dingtian's lips, then turned and walked out. After Queen Hai Xian left, Yang Dingtian sat down. She knew that Hai Xian's first condition was the prerequisite for all the conditions. Although she definitely didn't know that Ao Shuang had become Naga. However, Ao Shuang was the only bloodline of Queen Poisa. She was determined to get it. Moreover, she had always been worried that one day, Ao Shuang would transform into Naga. In that case, she, Hai Xian, would be dead. Another thing was that Queen Hai Xian was actually testing to see if Ao Shuang had transformed. If Yang Dingtian's reaction was very intense, it meant that he might have already transformed. And if Yang Dingtian's reaction was calm, it meant that he might not have transformed yet. Therefore, Yang Dingtian said that he would absolutely not trade with anyone. Furthermore, Hai Xian had never thought that she would be able to succeed in her negotiations. It was just an opening, a warning. Next, she might have a lot of measures to force Yang Dingtian to compromise. Yang Dingtian didn't know what this woman's cultivation was like now. But no matter what, the matter of eliminating her had to be included in the plan as soon as possible. It would be best if he could kill her before the apocalyptic war began. He had to deal with the Snake Men Empire. Otherwise, the human countries would have to face 2 battles. As for the second condition, it didn't seem important right now, but it was extremely important. The door to the human kingdom that sealed the Great Hall of Heads. This point would become extremely important when the Doomsday War began. There were simply too many saint-level and half-step saint-level experts in Little Western Paradise. Moreover, Yongxi now controlled almost the entire Little Western Paradise. If the apocalyptic war began and the apocalyptic army was at a disadvantage, the masters of the Foxman clan in Little Western Paradise would come out in full force. It would be a disaster for the human countries. Now, this door was still under the control of the Netherworld Sea. Of course, there was also good news. The masters of the Fox clan in Little Western Paradise couldn't stay in the human countries for a long time. Otherwise, their cultivation would drop rapidly. Therefore, before the apocalyptic war began, the masters of Little Western Paradise would definitely not enter the human countries on a large scale. Before that, he would eliminate the forces of the Netherworld Sea and the Vulture Palace, completely unify the human countries, and eliminate all the guides. Then, he would be able to seal the masters of the Fox clan in Little Western Paradise in Little Western Paradise. Also, although Wu Yu proposed to help kill Wu Lingzi, Yang Dingtian was slightly tempted by this proposal. But soon, he gave up on this idea. Because of that sentence, there was no such thing as a free lunch. Even if there was a free lunch, it would be poisonous. No matter what, he had to rely on himself. If he wanted to get rid of Wu Lingzi and control the Vulture Palace, there was only one way, and that was to break through to the half-saint realm. Dongli secretly met with Wu Yu in Yingdu. I failed, Dongli said. I can see that, Wu Yu said. Eternal dwelling heaven was behind the wall. The Naga Empire can't fall into Yang Dingtian's hands. I want to kill Yang Dingtian, Dongli said. No, Wu Yu said. Dongli said, why not? The order to not kill Yang Dingtian was lifted nearly a year ago. Wu Yu said, now that things have changed again, no. Dongli said angrily, give me a reason. Wu Yu said, His Majesty the Demon King needs Yang Dingtian to challenge the God of Chaos. Dongli sneered, he's the enemy, why would we need him? Wu Yu said, you've already failed. Now, only Yang Dingtian can give birth to a half-god descendant. Do you think we can fight against the God of Chaos with our current strength? Impossible. Dongli was full of unwillingness. After a long silence, he said, anyway, my mission is over. I can't let the Naga race reproduce anymore. Now, give me the first-class evil spirit that belongs to me. I want to break through to the half-saint realm. I've been a 9th grade martial grandmaster for many years. I've had enough. Wu Yu said, you want to kill Yang Dingtian after breaking through to the half-saint realm? Dongli said, I didn't say that. Wu Yu said, you have to remember, after you give the evil spirit, you won't be able to kill Yang Dingtian. Because at that time, you won't even have your own will. Dongli said, then why is Yu Ming still so carefree and has his own will? Wu Yu said, that's because the first-class evil spirit hasn't suppressed his will, unlike Dongfang Bingling. Dongli said, is the first-class evil spirit going to suppress my will? Wu Yu said, yes, because you want to kill Yang Dingtian, your will be suppressed. Dong Li's face suddenly twitched, and he said, then what do you want me to do? Give me the first-class evil spirit? Wu Yu said, when you can think about the overall situation of His Majesty Demon King, we'll give you the first-class evil spirit and give you a new mission. Moreover, this mission can be completed with your ability. What mission? I can do it now. Dong Li said. Wu Yu said, no, wait until your heart calms down. You're used to being arrogant in the human countries. For the time being, you should stay in Little Western Paradise and feel how small you are. Then, Wu Yu waved and said, you can leave. Dong Li left indignantly. Wu Yu walked into the room and gently leaned on Yongshi Wentian's body, saying softly, Dong Li is far inferior to Yu Ming. Yongshi Wentian stroked Wu Yu's hair and said softly, yes, although Yu Ming is disobedient, he's the kind of child that makes his parents feel more sorry for him. Wu Yu said, when are you going to let the evil spirit suppress Yu Ming's will? Yongshi Wentian shook his head, I don't know, this matter is not entirely up to me. You also know that he's the boss of Earth. Wu Yu laughed, you're clearly much smarter than him, and he's obviously very frivolous, so why do you still listen to him? Yongshi Wentian laughed, Qin Wanchou, Wu Maji, which one of them isn't smarter than Yang Dingtian? Why do you all listen to Yang Dingtian? Don't you also like that Wentian? Wu Yu smiled, how can that be? I only like Wentian, okay. I really hate the way you guys are acting. Yongshi Wentian laughed, it's not just hate, right? The one on Earth wouldn't be so gentle to you. Wu Yu sighed, he's not gentle, but he's very real. You're very gentle, but you're very fake. Yongshi Wentian fell silent. After a long time, he said, Wu Yu, if one day, we need you to sacrifice yourself, will you do it? Wu Yu trembled, just like a few hundred years ago, when Yongshi sent me to the human race to borrow their seed. Yongshi Wentian said, more or less. Wu Yu said, that Wentian of Earth definitely won't do that. Yongshi Wentian said, yes, he won't do that, but I will. Will you agree? Wu Yu's tears fell, but a smile appeared on her face, of course, as long as you say it, I will agree. However, maybe I'll fall in love with someone else like a few hundred years ago. At that time, you'll be accompanying your wife and losing your soldiers. Yongshi Wentian's eyes were filled with unwillingness, so, unless it's absolutely necessary, I won't let you go. However, if it's really necessary, I'll have to do it. Wu Yu said, that shouldn't be the case, right? The child born of Yang Dingtian and Yao Rao is obviously a descendant of a demigod, right? Yongshi Wentian said, maybe, but that child is greatly influenced by his parents. His will is frighteningly firm, he won't listen to us. Wu Yu said, isn't there still Jia? She's also pregnant with Yang Dingtian's child. This child should listen to us. Yongshi Wentian said, let's hope that the pregnant Jia won't change her ambition. Her strong maternal love won't dilute her scheming. Then, Yongshi Wentian said, if we still can't control Jia's child, then maybe when the time comes, we'll really have to let you go. Wu Yu laid on Yongshi Wentian's leg and said softly, if you're not afraid of me falling in love with someone else, I'll go. At this time, Dong Li was strolling around the Silver Palace, his heart filled with resentment. Why? Why couldn't he kill Yang Dingtian? This wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was, why did he have to be treated differently from Netherworld? They were both the adopted sons of the Demon King. Why did he have to favor Netherworld? He was clearly an idiot who didn't even have a manly root. At this time, Dong Li was not only filled with hatred for Yang Dingtian, but also for Wu Yu, Netherworld, and even Wentian. When he passed by a red leaf forest, he suddenly smelled an incomparably alluring woman's fragrance. At this time, a peerlessly beautiful figure stood under a red leaf tree. It was Jia. Because she was pregnant, she had become a little more plump, and her delicate figure became more mature and moving. Moreover, her originally beautiful face became even more breathtaking. Jia's current beauty had even surpassed Yao Rao. She was almost on par with Queen Hai Xian. Dongli tried his best to widen his eyes, but he could only see a faint silhouette. That's right, this pair of other people's eyes was gradually taking effect on him. Although he was still blind, he already had a basic reaction to light. At this time, Jia was caressing her lower abdomen, staring blankly at the fallen red leaves. Suddenly, she saw Dongli and said coldly, "Human, this isn't a place you should be." Dongli could tell that this woman was Jia. Moreover, she was also the woman Yang Dingtian had slept with in the Little Western Paradise. Immediately, evil thoughts arose in his heart. He already had the darkness mystic flame. Although he couldn't arouse the Naga race, it didn't mean that he couldn't arouse the fox race. If he could make the demon fox race fall in love with him, then Yang Dingtian could just go and die. Suddenly, Dongli's handsome face revealed a devilish smile as he walked towards Jia. Chapter 775. Scram, human. Jia said word by word. Dongli continued to step forward and slowly released the aura of the darkness mystic flame. After sensing the dark aura, Jia's heart suddenly skipped a beat. A blush appeared on her flawless face, and the temperature of her delicate body rose by a lot. Dongli immediately felt this and was immediately overjoyed. He continued to step forward and said, "Miss Jia, don't you want to give birth to a demigod descendant? I can give you this opportunity." "You?" Jia sneered. "Of course. You are already moved, aren't you?" Dongli walked to Jia's side and said with a smile, "It's just that your modesty is hindering you. Why not let your heart guide your will? I will give you an experience that you will never forget." Dongli's darkness mystic flame stimulated the females of the demon fox race more than the serpent men race. However, that was all. It was still far from being moved. When Dongli came closer, Jia's disgust for him even exceeded the special feeling brought by the darkness mystic flame. "Scram, human." Jia said word by word, "I don't care who you are. What does it have to do with Chairman Yongxi? However, don't cause trouble for yourself. I'm not in a good mood." Dongli wouldn't have been so impatient to take such a risk. However, he had suffered a series of setbacks recently. He wanted to make a breakthrough in the demon fox race too much. Moreover, this Jia was Yang Dingtian's woman. In addition, the fragrance on her body made him lose his mind. "Ha ha ha, you will be grateful to me later." After saying that, Dongli pounced on her and was about to force himself on her. In his memory, Jia practiced art and not martial arts. Therefore, she should be powerless in front of Dongli. Although her father was the patriarch of the Shadow Spear clan. However, he believed that once a woman was occupied by him, she would be obedient to him as if she had changed into another person. Dongli had seen too many examples of this. Jia frowned in disgust and then disappeared in a flash. Dongli was startled and said with a smile, "Interesting. Your cultivation is not bad. Let's have some fun then." Then, Dongli used his upper body movement technique and pounced on Jia. Jia's figure flashed again and said coldly, "Human, you can do it once, twice, but not thrice. If you offend me for the third time, don't blame me for being impolite." Dongli smiled and said, "You're welcome." "Good, I like it when women are rude to me. Women need to be strong, the stronger the better." Then, using his movement technique, he opened his arms and hugged Jia as fast as lightning. Jia's beautiful eyes turned cold. She covered her lower abdomen with one hand and struck out with her other palm. Her jade-like palm was delicate and beautiful, and it looked like she had no strength at all. Dongli didn't put her in his eyes at all and continued to pounce on her. Slap! Jia's palm suddenly struck Dongli's chest. A burst of heart-wrenching pain followed, and then, the profound veins in his entire body seemed to be torn apart inch by inch. Puff! A mouthful of blood violently sprayed out like a sharp arrow. Dongli's body flew dozens of meters away like a straw and fell to the ground heavily. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. This person was completely blinded by lust and anger at this time. He didn't know that Jia's cultivation was far beyond her sister's alluring heyday. At that time, Yang Dingtian was a 7-star 9th grade great-grandmaster. He was restrained by her until he couldn't move, and then she forced herself on him. If Dongli fought with all his strength, he could barely hold on. Underestimating the enemy like this was just courting death. In fact, Jia didn't want to fight because she knew the complexity of the Silver Palace and the bottomless shadow of eternal Shi. But Dongli forced her to do it. At this time, Wu Yu slowly came over. Jia slightly bowed and saluted him. Wu Yu glanced at Dongli lying on the ground and said to Jia, "I'm sorry, did I scare you?" "I'm fine, thank you, madam." Jia said, "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." Wu Yu said, "Take care of your body." Jia left the Red Leaves Forest and returned to her palace. Her days in the Silver Palace weren't as good as she imagined. It was more like another round of bitter cultivation. When Yao Qi was there, she was like a fish in water. Because Yao Qi had given her unparalleled trust, even if she wasn't Yao Qi's wife, she was still like half a master in the Silver Palace. And now, although both Eternal Shi and Wu Yu were very polite to her on the surface, but the entire Silver Palace seemed to be enveloped by an invisible net, making it difficult for her to breathe. Of course, there was also a sense of complete loneliness. She used to think that she enjoyed this feeling of loneliness. Growing up in the Shadow Spear clan's palace, although she and Yao Rao were sisters, their relationship wasn't good. She didn't want to be with Yao Rao and often liked to be alone. So she used to think that she enjoyed being alone. But she found out that wasn't the case. Her so-called enjoyment of loneliness was relative and conditional. For example, it was loneliness in the Shadow Spear clan's palace, not true loneliness in the Silver Palace. Moreover, her idol, Yao Qi, was dead. As for her nominal husband, the husband who saw her as an enemy, he basically never came back. Right now, she was completely alone in the Silver Palace. She couldn't even go back to the Shadow Spear clan's palace. Because her father, Yao Ru too, wanted to take back the political resources he invested in Yao Qi from his daughter. So if she went back to the Shadow Spear clan, it would mean that Yao Ru's efforts would go down the drain. She would also receive her father's cold eyes and anger. But she would persevere. She felt that she wouldn't lose to anyone. At the Radiance Parliament's headquarters in the central capital, Yang Dingtian had organized a small core meeting. Only a few people were participating. He reported the situation of Little Western Paradise to the core members present, which put a lot of pressure on the Council of Light. Many people had heard of Little Western Paradise. Even Dongfang Minmi and Qin Wanchou had participated in the pursuit of Yao Rao. But they didn't expect Little Western Paradise to be such an advanced civilization. And the most terrifying thing was that this plane had already fallen into Wentian's hands. Yang Dingtian said, "Wentian's plan has steps to follow. So far, half of his strategy has succeeded, and the other half has failed. He succeeded in controlling the Underworld Empire. He basically succeeded in controlling the Little Western Paradise. And he failed in controlling the Snakeman Empire. He also failed in controlling the human countries." Qin Wanchou said, "His failures are all small strategies. His big strategies have all succeeded." "Yes." Yang Dingtian said, "The failure of the Snakeman Empire and the human countries didn't affect Wentian much. It won't affect his strategy at all. Now, we have to predict how many more steps Wentian has to take. How long until the world-ending war begins? This depends on what the Queen Devil Queen and Princely Ming are doing. Summoning the Legion of Doom and reviving the Demon King Wentian." Dongfang Minmi said. "Yes, this is the most comprehensive answer." Yang Dingtian said, "This is also the most logical answer. So, there is one more question. Where are Li Ming and the Devil Queen? Can we interrupt their strategy? Dongfang Minmi said, according to sect master's speculation, I feel that the possibility of Wentian being in the ruins of the Naga Empire is very high. But it should be very difficult to interrupt their strategy. Because both Li Ming and the Devil Queen are too strong. Qin Wanchou suddenly said, Sect Master, because of your leadership, we are more prepared for this world-ending war than before. Our strength is unprecedentedly strong. So on the battlefield, I feel that we have a very high chance of victory. But on the martial Dao, we are very weak. Not to mention the Underworld Empire, even the Naga Empire's martial Dao is far superior to ours. But I believe that you have a way to deal with the Naga Empire, right? Yang Dingtian nodded and said, I have a plan for the Naga Empire. The key is that the Little Western Paradise's martial Dao is far superior to the Naga Empire. Once the Fox Clan's experts enter the human countries in large numbers, it will be a disaster. Therefore, it was imperative to eliminate the Spirit Vulture Palace and the Sea of Nether. Only by eliminating these two forces can we fight for and seal the door to the human countries, preventing the experts of the Little Western Paradise from entering. Everyone fell into silence. To eliminate the Vulture Palace and the Netherworld Sea, one would need to be at least a half-saint, and not a low one. Currently, there was not a single half-saint in the entire Council of Light. The martial Dao strength of the human countries was too weak. Originally, there was Nihility Piao Ling, but unfortunately, she had been demonized. Originally, there was Wu Lingzi, but he was an enemy. So, it is urgent to improve the martial Dao level of the Council of Light on a large scale. Yang Dingtian said, I have a plan, which is to use the spiritual illusion of the taboo continent to improve the martial Dao level of the core forces of the Council of Light on a large scale. Yang Dingtian already had this plan in mind. The spiritual illusion of the taboo continent could greatly improve the martial Dao level of a warrior in a few months. But there was also a risk, which was that the people of the Little Western Paradise could enter and destroy at any time, including the people of the human countries. With Yang Dingtian's protection, he was not afraid of the experts below the half-saint level. But if the experts above the half-saint level came to destroy, it would be troublesome. And the key was that cultivating in the taboo continent would take a few months. Yang Dingtian's time was very precious, and it was difficult for him to guard for a long time. He had to break through to the half-saint level in the shortest time possible. The spiritual illusion of the taboo continent. Currently, I know the complete process from the first world to the fifth world. Yang Dingtian said, Dongfang Bingling once cultivated here for nearly 2 years and broke through to the half-saint level in one fell swoop. Of course, we can't cultivate for such a long time. In fact, cultivating to the fourth world is the fastest and most effective way. So, I plan to let our people enter the spiritual illusion of the taboo continent in batches. The first batch I suggest is Wu Maji, Dishi Bian, and the others. The demon vulture King Azu is very experienced in the spiritual illusion of the taboo continent. It will be your mount for each batch of cultivation. Yes, husband. Wu Maji said, her beautiful eyes flashing with excitement. Dongfang Minmi said, but this kind of cultivation, the Little Western Paradise and the evil ways probably won't sit by and do nothing. Once it's destroyed, this kind of cultivation can't be carried out. Yes, it's impossible to guard against it. Yang Dingtian sighed, even if the cultivation time is a few months, we can't hope that the enemy won't find out. Yang Dingtian thought deeply, and said, in this case, Yongshi Wentian still doesn't know that I've seen through him. So, I'll enter the Little Western Paradise again and directly ask for our people to enter the taboo continent to cultivate on a large scale. I hope they can understand. Then, I'll go to the Shadow Spear clan and ask Yanu to help guard the door of the Fox clan. That's right, this method works. Now, Yongshi Wentian still thought that Yang Dingtian treated him as an ally, and he probably didn't care too much about the Council of Light's strength. Most importantly, Yao Nu too was Yang Dingtian's ally, and he wanted to push Jia to the position of chairman in the future. He could also guard the door of the Little Western Paradise. Then, the key was the door of the human kingdom. It was conceivable that the Vulture Palace might not have the guts to destroy it, but the Naga Empire's Queen Hai Xian was worried that she couldn't find a chance to force Yang Dingtian to compromise, and would do her best to destroy it. In the entire human world, there was almost no one who could subdue Hai Xian, so the door of the human kingdom really couldn't be guarded. Suddenly, Wu Maji's beautiful eyes lit up, and she said, "Husband, there's actually someone who can help guard the door of the human kingdom." "Who?" Yang Dingtian asked, but he immediately knew the answer after asking. "That's right, a half-step sage expert, Wu Yuming." This isn't good." Yang Dingtian was speechless. Letting the fifth-in-command of the evil ways protect the Council of Light, this seemed a little crazy no matter how he looked at it. Wu Maji said, "Actually, we only need to drag Ling Wu down with us. Let her follow us and cultivate in the Forbidden Continent's illusory realm. Wu Yuming won't refuse." Yang Dingtian was stunned. This was really a way. But why did it seem a little despicable? However, for the sake of the Council of Light's strength, this little despicable didn't matter. At this moment, Wu Yuming and Ling Wu should still be cultivating in the grassland of Dongli and hunting for an Earth-level mystic flame. Therefore, the meeting decided. Next, the experts of the Council of Light immediately entered the Forbidden Continent's illusory realm to cultivate. They wanted to raise their cultivation as high as possible in the shortest time possible. Demon's Wrath too would guard the door of the Demon Fox clan, and Wu Yuming would help guard the door of the human kingdom. After the meeting ended, Yang Dingtian immediately rode on Demon Eagle King Ajia, and together with Wu Maji, they headed to the grassland of Dongli to meet Wu Yuming and Ling Wu. Sigh, the changes in the world were really too unpredictable. Before this, he would never have thought that he would actually seek cooperation with Wu Yuming one day. Chapter 776. Yang Dingtian, who entered the Little Western Paradise again, immediately transformed into the Speechless Clan. Before going to Indu, he decided to visit the Shadow Spear clan first. Then, Demon Rage 2 told Yang Dingtian about Jiya's pregnancy with joy and a complicated expression. Yang Dingtian was shocked. On the other hand, Demon Rage 2 silently sat opposite him without moving at all. After a long while, he suddenly said, "I went to the Silver Moon clan some time ago and met Yao Li." Yang Dingtian raised his head and looked at him. Demon Rage 2 said, "I am very curious about his seclusion. I believe that he must know a lot about Yao Qi's death and other things. So, I asked him why he retired." "How did Yao Qi die?" Yang Dingtian asked. "What did he say?" Demon Rage 2 said, "He congratulated me for getting a son-in-law with deep feelings." Then, Demon Rage 2 raised his head and asked Yang Dingtian, "Mr. Jiang Shang, what do you think he meant by that?" Yang Dingtian's mouth was dry. The meaning of Yao Li's words couldn't be clearer. A son-in-law with deep feelings. Demon Rage 2 knew clearly about the relationship between Jiang Shang and Jiya. It wasn't good at all. For Yao Qi, Jiya had harmed Jiang Shang many times. So, this son-in-law was naturally Yao Rao's husband, Yang Dingtian. For Yao Rao and her son, he risked his life to come here. Yao Li's words were equivalent to telling Demon Rage 2 about Mr. Jiang Shang's true identity. Demon Rage 2 said, "I asked him, how did Yao Qi die?" He said, "Let me ask you. Now, let me ask you, how did Yao Qi die?" Yang Dingtian was silent for a moment, then answered, "Probably, he was killed by His Excellency Yong Shi." Demon Rage 2 said, "Why did you kill him?" Yang Dingtian, "We have different political views. Yong Shi thinks that Yao Qi will bring the entire Fox Demon clan to a dead end. She will destroy the Little Western Paradise and the entire world. I think Yao Qi will destroy the human world before destroying Little Western Paradise and the entire world." Yao Nu too said, "You also participated in the process of killing Yao Qi." "Yes, but he saw through it," Yang Dingtian said. I was also extremely shocked and surprised when he died. Of course, I'm happy to see him die, even though I admire Yao Qi a lot. Yao Nu-Tu's face was dark and uncertain. Was he resentful? Of course, he was furious. The resources that he had spent on Yao Qi had turned into nothing. However, he was a realistic and rational person. Since things were already set in stone, he would look for the most advantageous aspect for himself. After a long silence, Monster Rage 2 said, Mr. Jiang Shang, I don't care who your real identity is, but in the Little Western Paradise, in front of me, you can only be Jiang Shang from the Speechless clan. Of course, Yang Dingtian said. Yao Nu-Tu said, also, the political deal between me and Yong Shi cannot be changed. Whether it's you or Yong Shi, you can't change it. If anyone wants to change this, my allies and I will immediately form an alliance with the Silver Moon clan and overthrow the Yindu Council. Of course, Yang Dingtian said. Yao Nu-Tu said, also, the son that Jia gave birth to can only stay in Little Western Paradise. Yang Dingtian was silent for a long time. He was not prepared for this at all. He had always thought that Jia would avoid pregnancy because she did not like him. Her pregnancy was really an extreme accident. At present, Yang Dingtian could not take the child away from Jia. Yao Nu-Tu said, now, can you tell me why you're looking for me? Yang Dingtian said, a few of my men are going to enter the Forbidden Continent's illusion realm to cultivate for a few months. Therefore, I wish to close the silver door in the Skull Hall and not allow any demon fox race to enter the hall. Yao Nu-Tu narrowed his eyes and said, you want me to send people to guard the silver door? You should know that the high-level fox demons are very unwilling to enter the human countries because their cultivation will constantly weaken. So, Yao Li and Yao Qi were forced to go to the human countries. So, even if they don't guard it, there might not be a single fox demon entering the human countries for a few years. Yang Dingtian said, guard it. There will be benefits in the end. Yao Nu-Tu nodded at Yang Dingtian and said, now, you and I are allies, right? Yang Dingtian nodded and said, we're father and son-in-law, and we have a grandson. It can't be changed. Yao Nu-Tu nodded and said, all right, I agree. And let me tell you, I don't care about anything else. Even if the human countries are completely destroyed in the Great Doomsday War, I don't care. I only care about one thing. 100 years, or 200 years later, my daughter Jia will sit on the chair of the Little Western Paradise. I don't care about the matters of the cats and dogs in the human countries. Understood. Yang Dingtian said. After bidding farewell to Yao Nu-Tu, Yang Dingtian went to Yindu to meet Yong Shi. This matter seemed ridiculous. Evil ways were Yong Shi Wentian's. But Yang Dingtian asked for help to let the Council of Light cultivate in the Forbidden Continent to increase their cultivation. One must know that after the Council of Light's core cultivators increased their cultivation, they would fight evil ways. But Yang Dingtian bet that Yong Shi Wentian wouldn't care about the Council of Light's cultivation at all. The current Wentian was in charge of many planes. He didn't care about the Council of Light at all. In fact, the higher the cultivation of the Council of Light's higher-ups, the higher the number of high-level undead in the Underworld Empire after they died in battle. Moreover, Yang Dingtian asked for his help. This made Yong Shi feel that Yang Dingtian didn't suspect his identity. He came to the Silver Palace again. Yong Shi was still sitting in his wheelchair. Yang Dingtian pushed him around the garden. You left for more than a month. I thought you wouldn't come back. Yong Shi smiled. Originally, I didn't plan to come back. Yang Dingtian said, but there's something I need your help with. What is it? Yong Shi asked. Yang Dingtian said, you also know that I cultivated in the Forbidden Continent for a few months. My cultivation increased very quickly. So, I want to let the Council of Light's higher-ups cultivate there and increase their cultivation. Yong Shi smiled and said, that's a good thing. I agree. But you also know that I don't have enough control over the experts of the Fox clan. So, I suggest you ask for experts from Monster's Wrath 2 to guard the entrance. Yang Dingtian nodded and said, I think so too. Yongxi said, will it take long? Yang Dingtian said, it shouldn't take more than half a year. Yes. Yongxi replied, by the way, do you know about Jia's pregnancy? Yang Dingtian said bitterly, I know. Yongxi said, then go and see her. Yang Dingtian sighed and said, this is really unexpected for me. Yongxi smiled and said, go and see her. Yang Dingtian pushed Yongxi back to the palace. After Yang Dingtian left, Wu Yu entered Yongxi's room. It's strange that Yang Dingtian came back at this time. Wu Yu said. Yongxi said, he wants the upper echelons of the Council of Light to cultivate in the illusion of the taboo continent. He wants the Fox clan to seal the Silver Gate and not let anyone enter the Skull Hall. Wu Yu said, did you agree? Yongxi said, yes, half a year. Do you need to go to the human countries in half a year? Wu Yu said, with Mu Dan in the human countries, you don't need me. It's better for me to stay here and help you. Furthermore, haven't we already decided that we will not touch Yang Dingtian and the Radiance Parliament before the World Extermination War? We will wait for the World Extermination War to start. Yongxi said, yes, the upper echelons of the Council of Light have become stronger. It's equivalent to the Underworld Empire having a few more powerful undead. It's not worth mentioning. Wu Yu sneered and said, if Yang Dingtian were to know that he had worked so hard for the World Extermination War, but he didn't know that we had already disregarded the World Extermination War and his Heaven Dao Union's army. Yongxi said, he can't be underestimated. I can feel that when he saw me just now, he was already suspicious and afraid of me. Wu Yu said, do we need to use a psychic to probe his brain? Yongxi said, not for now, so as not to alert the enemy. Yongxi said, it won't change anything anyway. Besides, I'm in charge of the Little Western Paradise. I have to make sure that he's a fresh stallion that can breed many demigod descendants. Wu Yu suddenly said, oh right, Jia has seen that scourge Dongli. If she tells Yang Dingtian might see through you. Yongxi said, don't worry, she won't tell, and she can't tell. As for Dongli, he's been imprisoned. Let him stay in the dungeon for half a year to clear his head. Inside Jia's office. The first thing Yang Dingtian saw when he saw her was her belly, which hadn't bulged yet. However, her entire body had become a little more plump. Her originally statue-like beauty now had a hint of femininity to it. Jia was surprised to see Yang Dingtian suddenly appear in front of her. When did you get pregnant? Yang Dingtian asked. Jia said after a moment of silence, when I reminded you that you fell into Yao Qi's trap. Yang Dingtian said, in other words, it's been almost 3 months. Yes. Jia said. Yang Dingtian said, didn't you take any defensive measures at that time? Jia looked up at Yang Dingtian and said, I did. You know that I don't like you. Of course, I don't want to give birth to your child. I was thinking that if you died one day, I would remarry Yao Qi. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but frown. She was pregnant after taking defensive measures. Was he that powerful? Jia suddenly said, actually, you can just treat it as an accident. Don't mind it. I have the ability to raise this child. You can pretend that nothing happened. Yang Dingtian sighed and said, believe me, Jia, it's not that easy. Whether it's for you or for me, it's not that easy. Then, Yang Dingtian suddenly said, can I touch the child in your belly? Jia trembled. She was not used to such a request. Yang Dingtian walked over and gently touched Jia's belly. He closed his eyes, trying to feel the little life in her belly. At this time, ordinary people could not feel the heartbeat of the little life in her belly. However, Yang Dingtian could feel it. It was a peaceful and strong aura. When Yang Dingtian's hand touched her belly, Jia's body went soft. She had the urge to lean back. However, she resisted and stood there motionless. Yang Dingtian gently touched Jia's belly. The two of them fell into a complicated silence. After a quarter of an hour, he said, "All right, I'll be leaving." Jia nodded. Yang Dingtian turned and left. On the way back to the Hall of Skulls, Yang Dingtian covered his body in a cloak. When he passed by the Shadow Spear clan, Monster Wrath II was already waiting for him with two martial saints. When they saw Yang Dingtian, they did not say anything. The two martial saints followed behind him and headed to the Hall of Skulls. Moreover, according to Yang Dingtian's request, they handed him a bottle of related elixirs. After Yang Dingtian entered the Hall of Skulls, the two martial saints guarded outside the silver door. Because Yong Shi and Monster Wrath II had personally agreed, no one could open this silver door for half a year. In the Hall of Skulls, Yang Dingtian waited for 2 hours. The green door of the human kingdom opened. This was because the captive from the Netherworld Sea had entered the illusory realm of the taboo continent and opened the green door for Yang Dingtian. That's right. Almost all of the Netherworld Sea's martial grandmasters had cultivated in the taboo continent. However, they were only stuck in the 6th world. So far, the one who had walked the furthest in the taboo continent was Princess Mu Dan. Even others did not know how she had passed through the later worlds. After leaving the Hall of Skulls, Yang Dingtian flew for more than 1,000 miles. Immediately, he saw Ling Wu at the entrance of the taboo continent's sea region. Of course, he still did not see Wu Yuming. However, it was obvious that he had started to guard the entrance. As for Dongfang Minmi, Dishi Bian, and the other captive from the Netherworld Sea, they were waiting for Yang Dingtian at the entrance. Has the Little Western Paradise succeeded? Ling Wu asked. Yang Dingtian said, "It has succeeded. We can enter the illusory realm of the taboo continent to cultivate at any time." Ling Wu, I'll leave the entrance of the human kingdom to you. I'll return to the central capital first. After dealing with the relevant matters, I'll return to the Hall of Skulls in 2 or 3 days at most. I'll bring the first batch of you to cultivate. All right. Ling Wu said. After returning to the central capital, Yun Zhenu passed a letter to Yang Dingtian and said, "This is the letter Master left behind before she left." Before she left? Yang Dingtian was stunned. Yun Zhenu said, after she left the central capital, she first went to the Vulture Palace before returning to the Snake Men Empire. This letter was left behind after she returned to the Snake Men Empire. Yang Dingtian opened the letter and read it. Immediately, he was shocked. There were only a few simple words on the letter. Do you want to know the whereabouts of the 5th stage of the pig-slaying sword technique? Agree to my conditions. Otherwise. Chapter 777. The 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. After the initial shock, Yang Dingtian only had one thought in his mind. Don't lie to me. How could Queen Hai Xan know about the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship? Yes, the first volume of the 4th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship was auctioned off by the Naga Empire. But Queen Poisa had said that this was the only volume. There was nothing else. But then again, the first volume of the 4th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship was found by Queen Hai Xan because Queen Poisa never left the Naga tribe. Therefore, Queen Hai Xan might really know the whereabouts of the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. But Yang Dingtian also knew the rough whereabouts. At the end of the 4th stage, Shiwu Piaoyan also said that he was going to write the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. He might be able to write it, but he might not. Because the 5th stage was ready to tear the space apart. The reason why Shiwu Piaoyan studied this topic was that he found that the whole world was divided into many planes. Each plane could not be reached directly. He had to jump through space. And if he wanted to study the destruction of the world, or to save the world, he had to go to the Naga Empire. If he wanted to go to the Naga Empire, he had to jump through space. And he said that in order to write the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship, he would go to the void border because there was a kind of void beast that could disappear in an instant and appear in another place. They had the ability to travel through space. He wanted to study this kind of void beast. Speaking of which, Yang Dingtian had already been to the void border twice. The first time was the one where Yaoqi died. There were energy creatures at the void border, but there were no legendary void beasts. There were only many electric creatures. The second time was at the void border of the dark world. That void border meant complete death. There was no life, not even energy creatures. Yang Dingtian thought for a moment and decided to ignore Queen Haixian's temptation and threat for the time being. He would first arrange the matters related to his cultivation in the taboo continent. The Council of Light's most difficult time had passed. The reorganization of the central continent was on the right track. The only threat at the moment was the Spirit Vulture Palace. And with Walingzi's cowardice, he would not dare to take the initiative to look for trouble. But half of the Council of Light had to stay behind to handle the relevant matters. In general, they were divided into 2 groups to enter the taboo continent to cultivate. For example, Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue, their positions in the taboo continent were the same. One stayed behind while the other went to the taboo continent. Dongfang Nimi and Qin Wanchou were in the same situation. Therefore, one stayed behind and the other went to cultivate. Qiu Wanjie and Kue Si, Yun Kailin and Duan Ruyan, Kue Qing and Song Chunhua were all in the same situation. In short, all the core experts of the Radiant Parliament above the Grand Master level had entered the taboo continent to train. Why did it have to be above the master level? Of course, it wasn't because they were discriminating against people below the master level. It was because only the strong people above the master level could withstand the cultivation inside. However, there were close to 100 people at the core level of the Radiant Parliament who were above the Guru level, including Shiman Lai and Madame Shiman. They had broken through to Masters in the past few years. Ning Ro, was supposed to be a high-level martial honorable. But after a woman got married, it was difficult for her to maintain her ambition to cultivate. Her current cultivation progress was already very difficult. Recently, she was preparing to have a child, so she did not have the time. Horror Mountain Village's Xiao Mu was a pleasant surprise. Although he had not broken through to Masters, he was already a 6-star martial honorable. However, he had wasted a lot of time on his cultivation. As the second in command of the Southwest Continent's Central Defense District, he was so busy that he forgot to eat and sleep every day. Another pleasant surprise was Li Guinong. He was almost 60 years old. After obtaining the Xian gathering formation and using the Council of Light's large amount of resources, his martial arts had a second spring. In a short 5 years, he had soared from a mid-level martial honorable to a mid-level master. It could be seen that his talent was extremely shocking. It was just that in the past few decades, Wooden Sword Castle's decline had delayed his cultivation. Of course, there was one more person on the list that Yang Dingtian was puzzled. That was Leng Ao. He had also broken through to Masters and was currently a 2-star master. Yang Dingtian was already 25 years old this year, and he was already in his early 30s. Breaking through to Masters at the age of 30 was considered quite an amazing existence. Because of Ling Qingchen, Yang Dingtian had always felt guilty towards him. However, his name was originally on the list, but it was crossed out. Yang Dingtian asked someone, but in the end, it was Dongfang Minmi who crossed it out himself. Yang Dingtian asked his master, but he said that Leng Ao's thoughts were wrong, so he made the decision to cross out Leng Ao's name. Of course, the reason was that Leng Ao used to be very close to Zhu Qingzhu and Zhu Hongyu. He was also quite disgusted by the fact that Yang Dingtian's forces had entered the East Continent. In short, he was hostile towards Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian hesitated for a moment and said, "Master, let me see Leng Ao and give him a chance." Dongfang Minmi sighed and then nodded. Then, Shadowless rode on Yang Dingtian's Demon Eagle King and went to the Yin Yang school to summon Leng Ao. Yang Dingtian was surprised. Did Shadowless need to do such a small thing himself? He could have just sent someone else. In the end, when Shadowless brought the demon onto the Demon Eagle, Yang Dingtian knew. The demon must have felt bored in Zhongjing and wanted to go to the Yin Yang school to play. It was quite interesting. At that time, the demon was brought to Zhongjing by Yang Dingtian. Then, he asked someone to find Shadowless. As soon as it saw Shadowless, it pounced on him and clung onto him like a koala. Yang Dingtian didn't guess wrongly. Her lover was indeed Shadowless. Yun Zhenu told Yang Dingtian that Shadowless's reaction was quite interesting. At first, he was stunned. Then, he tightly held onto the demon's short skirt to prevent her from being exposed. Because the demon's skirt was very short, it would be very easy for her to be exposed if it was wrapped around his body. Shadowless was afraid of being taken advantage of, so he quickly blocked it. Then, the two of them were together without any obstacles. Yang Dingtian was very curious. He once asked Shadowless, "Do you remember what happened with the demon?" He shook his head, indicating that he didn't remember at all. Yang Dingtian was shocked. "Uncle Master, you don't remember her and you got together so quickly. You're really bold." Shadowless said, "I don't remember things clearly, but I remember the smell. I often dream about it, but I can't see her face clearly. Now that she's here, I can see clearly." Then, a human and a demon fox got together just like that. The strange thing was that the two of them didn't speak the same language. Shadowless often didn't speak for 3 to 5 days. As for the demon, she would die if she didn't speak for 3 to 5 minutes. That wasn't all. In order to resist the drop in cultivation, the demon even turned into a fox. Sometimes, she would be held in Shadowless's arms. Sometimes, she would run around under his feet. In short, this special pair of lovers was very close to each other. Many people were envious. Moreover, in the Council of Light's Taboo Continent cultivation mission, the demon and Shadowless would be very useful. Because the demon had saved Shadowless's life in the Skull Palace, she was relatively familiar with the Taboo Continent and the Skull Palace. Of course, there was another very important beauty in this cultivation mission. That was Ling Bai and Demon Vulture King Ah Jia. Previously, Yang Dingtian had thought of letting Ah Jia lead Wu Maji, Dishi Bian, and the others into cultivation. In the end, it didn't work. That was because Ah Jia also had memories in the Taboo Continent's illusion. He was also stuck at the beginning of the 6th world. Therefore, once he entered the Taboo Continent's illusion, his progress would be different from Wu Maji's. Therefore, he didn't know what would happen then. Moreover, he and Ling Bai had a greater mission. That was to open the human gate in the Skull Palace every 2 hours so that Yang Dingtian or the others could enter and exit at any time. That was because Ling Bai and Ah Jia were stuck at the beginning of the 6th world. Once they entered the Taboo Continent's illusion, they could leave the Taboo Continent at any time through the reverse void illusion. It was easy for others to enter the Taboo Continent, but it would be troublesome to leave. The list of the first wave of people going to the Taboo Continent to cultivate had been made. This time, Qin Wanqiu stayed behind and Dongfang Minmi went to cultivate. During this time, Yang Dingtian would shuttle back and forth between the Skull Palace and the Human Kingdom. 16 hours later, Shadowless rode the Demon Vulture King back. However, Leng Ao didn't come. Leng Ao said that if there's anything, you should talk to him personally. Don't be so arrogant. Wait for his visit in Zhongjing. Shadowless relayed Leng Ao's words. Instantly, Dongfang Minmi was so angry that he trembled all over. Was Yang Dingtian putting on airs? They were verifying the list on top, distinguishing which group would stay first and which group would enter to cultivate. Yang Dingtian was busy with official business. Moreover, Dongfang Minmi crossed out Leng Ao's name. Yang Dingtian wanted to give him another chance. Dongfang Minmi was even more disappointed in Leng Ao. Yang Dingtian also felt angry in his heart. However, Leng Qingqian's eyes before she died suddenly appeared in his mind. Master, since the list has been decided, it's time to assign and arrange work. I don't have anything to do, so I'll go to the Yinyang school. If I can untie the knot in his heart, it would be the best. Yang Dingtian said. Dongfang Minmi's face twitched for a while, but he didn't say anything. Although he was angry with Leng Ao, he wanted to protect and take care of him. Leng Ao's kindness to him was as heavy as a mountain, so he couldn't let Leng Ao go the wrong way. The reason why he crossed out Leng Ao's name was another kind of protection. Now that Yang Dingtian took the initiative to untie Leng Ao's knot, he was certainly willing to see it. Therefore, Yang Dingtian rode the Demon Vulture King and flew directly to the Yinyang school in the Eastern Cloud State. A distance of nearly 20,000 miles, the current Demon Vulture King only needed 8 hours to fly. Now, a claw's flying speed had surpassed all mounts in seconds, even the flying speed of a great grandmaster. At the Yinyang school, Yang Dingtian saw Leng Ao. He was still cold and handsome, but his face had a bit of wind and frost. Senior Brother Leng, this time, the powerhouses above the great grandmaster level of the Council of Light will go to a secret realm to cultivate. You're in the first batch. What do you think? Yang Dingtian asked. When Leng Ao saw Yang Dingtian come in person, his eyes were slightly moved. Then I have to thank Sect Master Yang for his care. Leng Ao said. No, this is the original arrangement. Yang Dingtian said. Leng Ao said, but I know that Sect Master Dongfang has already crossed out my name. Because I was hostile to you, verbally attacked you, and was very close to Zhu Hongyu. Yang Dingtian was silent for a moment and said, I know that because of Bing Ling, Senior Brother Leng is hostile to me. But it doesn't matter. I believe that Senior Brother Leng still upholds justice in his heart, just like Uncle Leng Qingqian. Justice? What is justice? Leng Ao said with a smile, is my father righteous enough? He's dead. I've already seen through all of this. Yang Dingtian, thank you for coming. I won't go to that secret realm to cultivate. Then, Leng Ao turned around and was about to leave. Yang Dingtian's face twitched, and he said, Leng Ao, you called me all the way here just to tell me this? Leng Ao looked at Yang Dingtian. Sorry, I just said that casually to Shadowless. I didn't expect you to really come. Yang Dingtian, are you going to continue living like this? Leng Ao said with a smile, what else can I do? The woman I love was taken away by you, and my father was killed by you. Do you want me to crawl at your feet loyally and go through fire and water for you? Yang Dingtian immediately trembled and said sternly, are you going through fire and water for me? You don't need to be loyal to me. You only need to be loyal to this world. Don't talk to me about grand principles. Leng Ao waved his hand and said, I saw you when you were still grass, so no matter how high your status is now, in my heart, you will always be the Yang Dingtian from 5 years ago. Your grand principles are not persuasive to me. Ha! Yang Dingtian immediately laughed and said, Leng Ao, you're half right. 5 years ago, I was a grass, but now I'm still a grass in my heart, and I will be like this in the future. I'm not like you, I've never been high and mighty. Or, the whole human race, the whole living thing, has always been a humble and tenacious grass. Well, I'm powerless to persuade you, you're on your own. Then, Yang Dingtian turned around and was about to leave. Right at this moment, a gorgeous and peerlessly beautiful figure suddenly drifted over. It was the Princess Mu Dan that Yang Dingtian was very familiar with, but also very strange to him. Of course, it was also Dongfang Bingling. At this time, even in the depths of her eyes, there was no icy aura. From inside to outside, she was completely a first-class evil spirit. She glanced at Yang Dingtian and then said to Leng Ao, Senior Brother Leng Ao, I need your help, will you come with me? Leng Ao's body suddenly trembled. Yang Dingtian said loudly, Leng Ao, she is not Dongfang Bingling, she is now Mu Dan of the Temple of Annihilation. So what? Leng Ao smiled at Yang Dingtian, and then said to Mu Dan, I'll go with you, but can you surpass Yang Dingtian? Yes, Mu Dan said. Okay, then I'll go with you, Leng Ao said decisively. Chapter 778. Seeing that Leng Ao was about to follow Mu Dan, Yang Dingtian suddenly activated the devil spirit demon fire and instantly froze Leng Ao. Then, a devil sky-splitting lightning suddenly burst out and directly struck Leng Ao's chi vessel. The entire process was very straightforward and decisive. He would rather destroy Leng Ao's cultivation than watch him become a lackey of evil ways. Pa! A huge lightning bolt suddenly tore out and directly appeared at Leng Ao's chi vessel. With Leng Ao's cultivation, he definitely wouldn't be able to withstand such a shocking lightning bolt. His entire chi vessel would instantly collapse and disintegrate. Who? But suddenly, Leng Ao's body was suddenly enveloped by a layer of mist-like barrier. It instantly protected his entire body and blocked the devil sky-splitting lightning outside. That's right, the devil sky-splitting lightning could ignore any energy barrier. However, this barrier was an insulating barrier. Yang Dingtian clearly saw that Mu Dan waved her lily-white hand and instantly, the stones on the ground turned into ashes and turned into an insulating barrier. Such an ability was simply amazing. Although she wasn't a celestial spirit master, such a gorgeous effect was even better than Vulture, a celestial spirit master. Mu Dan looked at Yang Dingtian and sneered. Nihility Piao Ling said that learning the fourth stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship is equivalent to having the symbol of a hidden sect disciple. Here, it refers to lightning energy, chaos, and the reversal of yin and yang. Everyone says that lightning is invincible and can't be defended against. In fact, there are at least 100 ways to defend against lightning for a half-saint powerhouse. Then, she raised her lily-white hand and Leng Ao's body suddenly floated up and landed behind her. Yang Dingtian looked at Leng Ao and said, Leng Ao, think carefully. Once you take this step, we will be enemies. It will be impossible for you to turn back even if you want to. Furthermore, don't expect me to show mercy to you. Leng Ao said indifferently, Yang Dingtian, we have always been enemies. Mu Dan looked at Yang Dingtian and smiled. Then, I'll take my leave. After saying that, she directly floated up, and Leng Ao's body also flew up, under the protection of her aura. As they flew away, Mu Dan suddenly smiled and said, Yang Dingtian, I can bestow second-class evil spirits to 5 people. Leng Ao is the first one. Who do you think I will bestow to the next 4 people? Then, she disappeared without a trace. Yang Dingtian looked in the direction where she disappeared and suddenly had a headache. He originally wanted to tell Leng Ao that Leng Qingchen died under the sword of Princess Mu Dan, but he didn't say it in the end. On a deserted island. Mu Dan looked at Leng Ao and said slowly, have you thought about it? You really want to accept my second-class evil spirit? Do you know that once this second-class evil spirit is given to you, you can't turn back? Leng Ao looked at Mu Dan fervently and said, I didn't want to turn back for a long time. Since you have gone to hell, then I will go to hell with you. Good. Welcome to the world of evil ways, Mu Dan said. Then, she stretched out her hand. A blue evil spirit tree slowly grew from her palm. There were 5 branches on it, all of which were empty at this time. Leng Ao knelt, put his hands together, and said, please give me strength. As long as I can defeat Yang Dingtian, as long as I can follow by your side, I will do anything. Mu Dan held one of the evil spirit branches, pulled it lightly, and threw it on Leng Ao's head. In an instant, the second-class evil spirit energy turned into thousands of strands and suddenly drilled into Leng Ao's brain. Then, his entire head burst out with green light. His entire eyeballs and hair turned completely green. Then, the green energy in his head began to spread throughout his body, and began to permeate every Xian vein. Ling Ao's entire body turned a terrifying green. All the flesh and blood in his body seemed to have turned a transparent green, looking incomparably terrifying and strange. Then, the sky for hundreds of miles was instantly covered by dark clouds, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. The surrounding hundreds of miles of sea churned and surged violently, setting off monstrous waves. Finally, with the entire deserted island as the origin, the hundreds of miles of sea turned into a huge Xian fire. Then, all the Xian qi energy in the surrounding hundreds of miles frantically poured into Ling Ao's body. Devour, frantically devour, endlessly devour. His cultivation began to soar crazily. From 3-star Grandmaster to 4-star, 5-star, 6-star, 7-star, 8-star, 9-star. Then, 9-star first class, 9-star second class, all the way to 9-star ninth class. Finally, this second-class evil spirit was still unable to help him directly break through to the Great Grandmaster realm. Then, all the green light dissipated and drilled into his sea of qi. Ling Ao's entire body returned to its original state, but his eyes became incomparably bright and astonishing, and his skin seemed to have been carved out of jade. Just a little bit more, and you'll break through to the Great Grandmaster realm. It will only take a few months, Mu Dan said. Ling Ao stretched out his hands and felt his strength. This feeling surprised and disappointed him. He said, "My current cultivation is still far from Yang Dingtian's, isn't it?" Mu Dan said, "With the second-class evil spirit, your cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds." Ling Ao said, "Then, what do I need to do now?" "As long as it's against the Council of Light, as long as it's against Yang Dingtian, I can do it." Mu Dan shook her head and said, "No, you don't have to do anything now. When I need you to do something, I will inform you." Ling Ao looked at Mu Dan's beautiful face and said, "Then, can I follow you in the future?" Mu Dan looked at him and said, "From now on, you are my man. Moreover, you can also bestow third-class evil spirits to 5 people. The life and death of these 5 people will be completely in your hands." After that, Mu Dan gently floated up and flew toward the west. Ling Ao said, "What are we going to do next?" Mu Dan said, "Find the second evil spirit owner." Yang Dingtian returned to Zhongjing with uneasiness. He deeply knew that the Doomsday War was already very close. This was because the evil ways had already begun to breed more evil spirits. Princess Mu Dan had already started to develop second-class evil spirits. These people would become the backbone of the evil ways in the future and become the commanders of the Legion of Doom. Yu Ming also had first-class evil spirits. However, he seemed to be uninterested in developing second-class evil spirits and only gave them to Ling Wu. As for Dongli, he was currently trapped in the Little Western Paradise and hadn't returned yet. He wouldn't be able to return to the human continent for at least half a year. Then, the only person who could bestow second-class evil spirits was Princess Mu Dan. She still had 4 quotas left. Who would she give them to? The most terrifying situation was that she would give the second-class evil spirits to Yang Dingtian's closest people, or even his wife. In this way, the life and death of Yang Dingtian's relatives would all be in the hands of Mu Dan. However, Yang Dingtian firmly believed that Mu Dan wouldn't do this. Moreover, doing so would only be able to take revenge on Yang Dingtian. Instead, it would waste the precious second-class evil spirits. This was because the cultivation of Yang Dingtian's relatives wasn't high. Furthermore, second-class evil spirits couldn't change a person's will. Therefore, they couldn't control their actions. Although Mu Dan didn't do this, it didn't mean that Dongli wouldn't do this. Yang Dingtian was almost certain that with Dongli's bone-deep hatred for him, once he possessed a first-class evil spirit, he would undoubtedly take revenge on Yang Dingtian. He would definitely give the second-class evil spirits to Yang Dingtian's wives and even do more beastly things to them. Half a year. There was at most half a year left before Dongli would return to the human continent. No, Dongli definitely can't live. I must kill him. It would be best if I could kill him directly in the Little Western Paradise. This was because once Dongli possessed a first-class evil spirit, his cultivation was very likely to break through to the half-saint level, just like Yu Ming. At that time, it would be very difficult for Yang Dingtian to kill him in the human countries. And in the Little Western Paradise, what were the chances of Demon's Wrath 2 killing Dongli? At present, although Yang Dingtian and Demon's Wrath 2 were allies, Yang Dingtian couldn't guarantee how likely it was for Demon's Wrath to offend Yongshi Wentian to kill Dongli. After all, Demon's Wrath was completely self-centered. At this time, Yongshi Wentian could give him far more benefits than Yang Dingtian. Although the situation had changed dramatically, the cultivation plan in the Taboo Continent couldn't be stopped. Because Dongfang Minmi was going to the Taboo Continent to cultivate, Yang Dingtian didn't tell him about Leng Ao. Yang Dingtian still followed the original plan and brought dozens of Council of Light Grandmaster-level powerhouses to the Skull Hall in the Taboo Continent's sea region. The remaining Grandmaster-level core members stayed behind to maintain the operation of the Council of Light. Song Lihua and Tang Buizhao, the two think tanks, had no interest in improving their cultivation at present. They were completely focused on government affairs. Qin Wanchou was the highest level left behind by the Council of Light. Yang Dingtian said to him, "Uncle Qin, I'll be back in 4 or 5 days at most. During this time, I'll have to trouble you." He didn't even mention that Mu Dan was developing a second-class evil spirit slave. Because Mu Dan was a half-saint powerhouse, no one could stop her from doing anything. Moreover, even if she wanted to plant a second-class evil spirit in a core member of the Council of Light, Yang Dingtian would dare to gamble with her. For example, Kuei Si, Song Shao, and even Qin Wanchou, even if they were planted with a second-class evil spirit, they might not follow Mu Dan. Although it would make them fall into darkness, it was impossible for them to immediately betray Yang Dingtian and the Council of Light. Instead, it would make their cultivation soar. After a day and a night, dozens of Council of Light experts rode dozens of demon eagles and arrived at the entrance of the Taboo Continent's sea region. They still couldn't see the half-saint powerhouse Wu Yuming, but he was guarding this entrance. With him guarding this entrance, no one in the human countries should be able to pass through, including Mu Dan and Queen Hai Xian. Yang Dingtian had already explained everything about the Taboo Continent's first world to the fifth world. The main point was how to return to the real world. It was very simple for those who had the mystic fire. They just had to travel in the reverse direction in the void environment and shoot out the mystic fire. Their instantaneous speed would be more than 2,000 miles per hour. However, those without the mystic fire would be troublesome. Therefore, they had to be divided into groups. For every 3 people in a clan, one of them only needed to possess the mystic flame. Of course, Yang Dingtian didn't know if some people in the real world would be able to wake them up if they were to be pushed or disturbed while cultivating in the Taboo Continent's illusion. However, Yang Dingtian wasn't ready to try this at the moment because the consequences might be very terrifying. Uncle Shadowless, Demon Spirit, you two enter the main hall first and wake up immediately. Yang Dingtian said, in the next few months, you two have to stay in the main hall and be responsible for everyone's safety at all times. Yes, Sect Master, Shadowless said. Then, the two of them held hands and flew directly into the Taboo Continent's sea region. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared from everyone's sight. Yang Dingtian said to Demon Vulture King Azu and Ling Bai, the two of you have a very important mission too. Every 2 hours, you have to enter and exit the Skull main hall and ensure that the door is opened every 2 hours. Do you understand? Demon Vulture King nodded and used his claws to make an okay gesture. Ling Bai seemed very nervous and kept repeating Yang Dingtian's words. However, Yang Dingtian now completely believed that she could do it because she was very dogmatic. As long as she was instructed to do something, she would do it strictly. The people in the first group were almost the most important and also the most luxurious group. Dishi Bian, Wu Maji, Ling Wu. The three of them had the mystic fire and their cultivation wasn't low. They should be separated. However, Dishi Bian and Wu Maji were inseparable, they couldn't leave each other. As for Ling Wu, as Wu Yoming's sworn sister, she had to be the most important too. Therefore, the three of them were placed in the first group. Of course, there was also a demon vulture. The three of them and the demon vulture had prepared a lot of elixirs. Yang Dingtian didn't hug Wu Maji. He only said lightly, "Ji, I've already told you in detail about how to pass through those worlds in the taboo continent. Among the three of us, you're the group leader. You have to coordinate everything." Mo Ji smiled sweetly at Yang Dingtian and said, "Don't worry, my husband." Then, the three of them rode on a demon vulture and flew towards the taboo continent's sea region. Not long after, they also disappeared directly. 2 hours later, the second group entered. The second group was led by Dongfang Minmi. He led 2 grandmasters with lower cultivation. One of them was Shimen Lai. The third group was Madame Shimen, Kuei Qing, and Song Chunhua. Song Chunhua was the leader. There were a total of 14 groups. About 15 minutes after Moji's first group entered, Yang Dingtian said to Dongfang Minmi, "Master, I'll enter the main hall first and wait for you inside." "Don't worry," Dongfang Minmi said. Then, Yang Dingtian flew into the taboo continent's sea region. Merely 15 minutes later, Yang Dingtian entered the 6th world of the taboo continent's illusory realm. Then, he used his fastest speed to escape from the illusory realm and appeared in the main hall. At this moment, Shadowless and Demon Spirit were sitting at the corner of the main hall. Wu Maji, Dishi Bian, Ling Wu, and the demon vulture of the first group were in the center of the main hall. Obviously, their cultivation in the taboo continent had already begun. At the same time, Princess Mu Dan was bringing Leng Ao to find the second-grade evil spirit enslaved person. Chapter 779. In the following time, groups of cultivators rode a demon eagle and flew into the illusion of the taboo continent. Perhaps, after a few months of cultivation, they would be able to nurture a large number of powerful demon eagles. At that time, it would be very useful to have dozens of demon eagles that could fly at a speed of more than 2,000 miles and could fight against 100 demon eagles. Every 2 hours, a group would enter. After more than 10 hours, a total of 14 groups had all entered the illusion of the taboo continent. As for the demon eagle king Jia and Ling Bai, they would take turns to enter and exit the skull hall every 2 hours to keep the door open. Yang Dingtian didn't guess wrongly. Although Ling Bai's brain was suppressed by dogmatism, she was quite accurate in following specific orders. As for the demon eagle king Jia, needless to say, this guy had become a spirit. Half of the essence of the Council of Light was here. Now, everyone's faces were filled with fatigue, surprise, mystery, and difficulty as they began to cultivate in the first world, the hard rock continent. Unlike Yang Dingtian, he flew aimlessly for tens of thousands of miles before descending. As for these dozen or so groups, they began to descend as soon as they entered the taboo continent. Therefore, they would travel tens of thousands of miles more than Yang Dingtian in the first world. Moreover, the direction of entering the taboo continent and the landing place were all different. This was because Yang Dingtian wanted to try his best not to let the groups meet in the world inside. This was because that feeling of loneliness and helplessness was more obvious for the improvement of one's cultivation. A group of 3, plus a demon eagle, was almost the best choice. Yang Dingtian could already see it clearly, although they were cultivating in the illusion in their minds. But in reality, the effect was exactly the same as real. This was because everyone's profound qi was desperately being consumed. Everyone was resisting the 5 times anti-gravity. Yang Dingtian could even see many people's veins bulging and muscles twitching. In short, although they were sitting cross-legged without moving, their entire bodies, profound veins, and energy qi were completely being consumed and cultivated. Yang Dingtian really didn't know where this skull hall came from. But in short, this world is really mysterious. It should be the best place for cultivation in the whole world. Bing Ling had cultivated there for more than 2 years and had directly broken through to the half-saint realm. Of course, 2 years in the real world would be countless years in the taboo continent's illusory realm. It might even be more than 10,000 years. Fortunately, her will was suppressed by the evil spirit. Otherwise, with her will and wisdom as a perfected being, even if she was as tough as iron, she would definitely collapse after cultivating for such a long time. Yang Dingtian had wasted more than half a month on the hard rock continent. In the end, it seemed that it had taken him a full 3 months to finish exploring the first world. In other words, it was about 16 days in real time. Of course, because these dozen or so groups were tens of thousands of li longer, it should be around the same time. Perhaps it would take around half a month. Of course, some groups might take less than half a month. Mu Dan and Leng Ao arrived in Zhongjing. Who's the second-grade dark spirit you're going to bestow? Leng Ao asked. Zhu Hongxue, Mu Dan said. Suddenly, Leng Ao's eyebrows twitched, and a trace of jealousy surged in his heart. Obviously, he did not want Zhu Hongxue to obtain a second-grade dark spirit, and he did not want Zhu Hongxue to be by Bing Ling's side. Because from the beginning, Zhu Hongxue was his real love rival. At this time, Zhu Hongxue was in North Zhongzhou. Because Dongfang Minmi had gone to the taboo continent's illusory realm, Black Heaven's sect master Zhuo Qingqi was guarding Zhongjing. Cheng Dabii had also gone to the taboo continent's illusory realm, and Elder Ning Busi was guarding the east continent. Qin Wanchou was shuttling back and forth between the west continent and Zhongjing. Of course, his focus was still on the reorganization of the entire South Zhongzhou. As for Zhu Hongxue, he was guarding North Zhongzhou. Not only was he guarding the Black Heaven sect, but he was also the supreme commander of 2 to 3 million elite troops in North Zhongzhou. Although he only had one arm left, his cultivation did not decrease after his arm was cut off. It was really strange. It was as if some kind of restraint was removed, and his cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds. It had been almost 2 years since he became a grandmaster. Now, while he was busy, his cultivation had broken through to a 4-star grandmaster, and he was almost catching up to Qin Huayu. North Zhongzhou's military affairs were the lightest. The reorganization of the military had basically been completed, and now, all that was left was training, training, and training. As for the development of weapons, it was all carried out secretly in the West Continent. The heaven-defying ancient beast, Xiao Xiao, was responsible for guarding the secret sea. Young master, someone has come to visit. He says he's an old friend. An elder of the Black Heaven sect came in and said. Zhu Hongxue frowned slightly. Although he had matured a lot, he did not like anyone to disturb him except for work matters, let alone an old friend. Got it, Zhu Hongxue said, then got up and walked out. The first person Zhu Hongxue saw was Princess Mu Dan, who was wearing a veil. Of course, it was also Dongfang Bingling. Obviously, he was stunned. Then, his gaze shifted to Leng Ao behind her, and his eyes suddenly turned cold. Obviously, his memory of Dongfang Bingling had been sealed for a long time, and he could not even recall it at once. Therefore, the first thing he felt was anger toward Leng Ao. He did not know about Leng Ao's depravity. However, he knew that Yang Dingtian personally went to the Yin Yang school to persuade Leng Ao, but he was rejected. Therefore, he instinctively wanted to say that he was not welcome here, and please leave and return to the Yin Yang school. Because of Leng Ao's special hostility, the Council of Light's internal opinion was to put him under semi-house arrest in the Yin Yang school. Once he left or walked in the world, the Council of Light would capture him to prevent him from destroying the Council of Light's great cause. However, just as he was about to say this, he could not help but look at Princess Mu Dan's figure again. Then, it was as if a violent bolt of lightning had struck his brain. All the memories that had been sealed for a long time emerged. Dongfang Bingling's every move, every detail of her face, and the graceful curves of her body were instantly engraved in his mind. Then, there was a burst of suffocating pressure and piercing pain. Mu Dan slowly took off her veil, revealing her beautiful face. It was still the same peerless beauty in his memory, but the frosty feeling was gone, replaced by a breathtaking beauty. It had been more than 5 years, and this was the first time Zhu Hongxue saw Dongfang Bingling's face. Faced with the feelings in his heart, he had already chosen to seal them. Therefore, he did not make any preparations or plans for meeting her. Suddenly, he clutched his heart and bent down with some difficulty. He wanted to find a place to sit down, because he felt like he could not stand straight. The reaction to this meeting was much more intense than he had imagined. Are you okay? Zhu Hongxue asked with difficulty. Mu Dan smiled and said, I'm not okay, but I'm not okay either. How about you? Are you okay? Me? Zhu Hongxue said, I'm fine. Mu Dan said, let's walk together, do you want to? Zhu Hongxue said, okay. Then, Mu Dan gently floated up and flew toward the highest mountain nearby. Zhu Hongxue also flew up. Then, the two of them stood at the top of the mountain, separated by 3 to 4 meters, and strolled side by side. Zhu Hongxue, why are you following Yang Dingtian? Mu Dan asked. Zhu Hongxue said, to pursue self-worth and self-improvement. Mu Dan said, then, can you be more specific? Zhu Hongxue said, to win the doomsday battle and save the world. Mu Dan said, a very noble dream. Then, do you think this is the highest ideal and goal? Zhu Hongxue nodded. Mu Dan said, actually, there is another ideal and goal that is even more ambitious. Zhu Hongxue said, what is it? Mu Dan said, to challenge fate and adjust the god of the primal chaos world. Suddenly, Zhu Hongxue's heart twitched violently. Mu Dan said, fate, do you know what fate is? Zhu Hongxue did not speak. Mu Dan said, fate is when God uses one hand to mercilessly manipulate everything in the world. Including Yang Dingtian's destined rise, including my love with Yang Dingtian, including your submission to Yang Dingtian, including your loss of the love of your life. Including my demonization. Suddenly, Zhu Hongxue's body twitched, and he was somewhat unable to move forward. Mu Dan continued, everyone is a chess piece of God, including me, including Yang Dingtian, including you, including the demon king Wentian. Of course, Yang Dingtian is a chess piece in God's hand, and can be considered his spokesperson. In the previous round, he chose to control the demon king Wentian as a chess piece and played the black side. In this round, God chose to control Yang Dingtian as a chess piece and played the white side. Zhu Hongxue's body trembled even more violently. Mu Dan said, so, we are the source of all the tragedies. The source of this world's tragedies, the source of this world's destruction, is that high and mighty God, who mercilessly manipulates us. Zhu Hongxue had already stopped and sat down. Mu Dan said, and the demon king Wentian is unwilling to be manipulated by fate, so he wants to challenge fate and declare war on God. Yang Dingtian's leadership of you should be considered a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Zhu Hongxue immediately looked towards the west instinctively. Yang Dingtian led everyone to the taboo continent in the west. Mu Dan said, so it seems that Yang Dingtian is naturally leading you to uphold justice. In reality, he is indeed leading you to help the evildoers. Everything you do is helping God to mercilessly manipulate everyone's fate. Afterwards, Peony said word by word, in the past, the Armageddon War would happen every 200 years. Every time the hidden sect's final victory and every time over 100 million people died, it was all God's manipulation. So, challenging the God of chaos is our highest justice. Finally, Mu Dan looked straight into Zhu Hongxue's eyes and said slowly, join us. Join us and uphold the highest justice, and challenge the God of chaos. Zhu Hongxue sat on the ground in a daze, unable to move. His gaze was so scattered that it was almost unfocused. Princess Mudan's words had an unprecedented impact on him. Moreover, these words were completely irrefutable. It sounded completely correct, completely the truth. Zhu Hongxue was definitely a stubborn person. He was not afraid of death, sacrifice, or even obedience. However, he was afraid that everything he did would be meaningless, afraid that the direction he took would be wrong. He could not help but recall all the things he had done along the way, and of course, all the things Yang Dingtian had done along the way. Were we wrong? Was Yang Dingtian really helping the evildoers by doing this? All of this really seemed like the arrangement of fate, the manipulation of God. Especially in the previous world extermination war that happened every 200 years, it was the Tiando League that won every time. Every victory seemed very mysterious and mysterious. All of this really seemed like the manipulation of God. If that was the case, then what was the point of fighting? Then what was the meaning of the great cause and the great justice that he thought of? Peony smiled and said, "Come, come with me. We will possess boundless strength. We will challenge the primal chaos world together and change our fate. We will change the fate of the entire world. I would rather burn resplendently and pass away than follow the prescribed order like a chess piece and suffer the ridicule of God." Every word Mudan said struck the deepest part of Zhu Hongxue's heart. He slowly stood up, his gaze gradually focused and became determined. Mudan smiled and said, "All right, follow me, Zhu Hongxue." Zhu Hongxue looked at Mudan, shook his head and said, "No, your words have indeed struck directly at my heart. However, Yang Dingtian is my leader. When I am confused, I should ask him for advice, and not change my position directly. What you said, I will let Yang Dingtian dispel my doubts. I want to give him a chance to persuade me." Then, Zhu Hongxue flew down the mountain. Chapter 780. They stayed in the Skull Hall for 3 full days. In these 3 days, the 14 groups of the Council of Light did not have any accidents in their cultivation, but it became more and more difficult and tiring. This was because half a month had passed in the dreamland. However, more than a dozen groups had entered a stable cultivation period. Basically, before entering the next world, there would be no accidents. Moreover, even if there was an accident, the demon spirit and Shadowless would rescue them immediately. Therefore, Yang Dingtian prepared to leave first and return to Zhongjing to guard it. After nearly half a month, when the 14 groups were all ready to enter the second level, Yang Dingtian returned to the Skull Hall. Therefore, Yang Dingtian told Shadowless his plan with lip language. Then, the green door of the human kingdom opened, and Ling Bai came in again. Demon Vulture King Azu and Yang Dingtian quickly flew out of the door and left the Skull Hall. After flying out of the Skull Hall's void world, they came to the sky above the Taboo continent. At this time, Wu Yoming's figure could no longer be seen. Yang Dingtian touched Demon Vulture King Azu's neck and said, "Then I'll leave it to you." Azu rubbed Yang Dingtian's body and made an okay gesture with his claws. Then, Yang Dingtian ran his celestial qi, rode on one of the spare demon vultures waiting on the sea, and flew toward Zhongjing. After 2 days and 1 night, Yang Dingtian returned to Zhongjing. As soon as he entered the headquarters of the Council of Light, he saw Zhu Hongxue waiting there. His beard was overgrown, his face was haggard, and his eyes were red. Yang Dingtian's heart thumped. Obviously, Zhu Hongxue's heart was in a great dilemma. Seeing Yang Dingtian come in, Zhu Hongxue immediately got up and said, "Sect Master, you're back." "Yes." Yang Dingtian said, "You have something to tell me?" "Yes." Zhu Hongxue said. "Well, let's talk inside and have something to eat." Yang Dingtian said. While eating, they drank. "Bing Ling, come and find me," Zhu Hongxue said. Yang Dingtian glanced at him and nodded. "I can guess that she has 5 second-class evil spirits in her hands." She gave the first one to Leng Ao while she probably wants to give the second one to you. Zhu Hongxue said, she told me a lot of things. There are some things that I don't understand, so I want to ask you for advice. Yang Dingtian, go ahead. Zhu Hongxue said, first, do you think there are gods in this world? Is there a god of chaos? Yang Dingtian said, there's something called the god of chaos. Zhu Hongxue said, after the great calamity of the ancient era, ever since the martial arts civilization flourished once more, the great calamity of the ancient era began. Every 200 years, there would be an Armageddon battle. It was like the cycle of reincarnation. Every time the Tiando League was held, it was a bizarre and mysterious victory. Every time, there were countless deaths. Tell me, is this the so-called fate? Is this the manipulation of the god of chaos? Yang Dingtian nodded and said, yes, I think so. Zhu Hongxue said, then, Sect Master Yang, are you a chess piece chosen by the god of chaos? And this time, the god of chaos played the white chess piece. In the last round, the chosen chess piece was the demon king Wentian, but he was a black chess piece. Yang Dingtian, yes, I was a little confused before, but now I know that I am the so-called spokesperson of the god. Zhu Hongxue's face suddenly trembled and said, Bing Ling said that we seem to be upholding justice, but in the world, we are helping the god of chaos. She said that the demon king Wentian led them to challenge the god of chaos, which is the highest justice. What do you think? Yang Dingtian, she convinced you? Zhu Hongxue said, at least, I can't find a refutation. Yang Dingtian, then why didn't you accept his second-class evil spirit? Zhu Hongxue said, I want to hear your opinion on this matter. Since I listened to Dongfang Bingling's words, I should also listen to what you have to say and then make a judgment. Yang Dingtian, you want me to convince you? Zhu Hongxue nodded and said, yes. Yang Dingtian stared at Zhu Hongxue and said, if that's the case, then I'm very disappointed, and I don't intend to say anything. If a person's heart still needs to rely on the words of others to be firm, then this person will always be a coward. Zhu Hongxue's face suddenly trembled and he said loudly, I'm not afraid of sacrifice, I'm not afraid of death, but I'm afraid that my sacrifice is meaningless. Yang Dingtian, I just want to ask you, what if all this is the manipulation of the god? The so-called upholding justice is a complete joke, then who is the most pitiful person? Zhu Hongxue's heart suddenly trembled and he looked at Yang Dingtian. It's you. Yes, it's me. Yang Dingtian said sternly, the most pitiful person is me because of the god's chess piece. The one who should be the most suspicious and the one who should be the most shaken is me. I'm not fucking shaken, I don't fucking have any doubts, I don't fucking feel that I'm pitiful, so why are you Zhu Hongxue sad? Then, Yang Dingtian drank a cup of wine and stared at Zhu Hongxue. Why are you so pretentious? You even put down the important matters of the northern middle state and waited here for me to come back, waiting for me to explain to you and give you a firm will. How old are you? Do you still need an adult to coax you and stew chicken soup for the soul for you? I don't have the time. You have two choices now. First, immediately scram back to the northern middle state and do your things. Second, go find Mu Dan now and accept her second-class evil spirit. You want an explanation from me, and you want to be convinced? No. Then, Yang Dingtian turned and left. He returned to his room and began to deal with a large number of official matters. The next day, when Yang Dingtian came out, he saw Zhu Hongxue again. His hair was a mess, and his eyes were even redder. He sat there without moving. Seeing Yang Dingtian come out, he immediately stood up and said, I don't want you to convince me. I just have some thoughts that I want to report to you. Do you think I'm right? Yang Dingtian said, speak. Zhu Hongxue said, first, no matter what she said, challenging the god of chaos is the highest justice. However, once the world-ending war starts, if we don't stand out, the entire world will fall into evil ways. The entire world will be plunged into darkness. Then, even if Wendian defeats the god of chaos in the end, everything will lose its meaning, right? Yang Dingtian nodded. Yes. Zhu Hongxue said, then I understand, but I want you to tell me something, just one thing, okay? Anything is fine. Yang Dingtian thought for a while and said, first, Wendian doesn't want to defeat the god of chaos. He wants to perish together with the god of chaos and drag the entire world down with him. Secondly, if you want to ask me, is everything we are doing now controlled by the god of chaos? Is this the so-called helping the evildoer? I can only tell you, sorry, we don't have the qualifications to think about this question. Zhu Hongxue was stunned. Yang Dingtian said, yes, you don't have the qualifications to think about it. The world-ending war hasn't been won yet, and most of the people in this world haven't been saved. What qualifications do you have to think about the so-called fate, the so-called manipulation of the god of chaos? For example, if you are trapped in a cell and are about to be bitten to death by a wolf inside. Do you want to kill this wolf first to live, or do you want to think about how to get out of this cell? Of course, he wanted to kill the wolf first and live first before thinking about how to get out of this cell. Finally, Yang Dingtian pointed at Zhu Hongxue's heart and said word by word, human, don't be too pretentious. Yes, sect head. Zhu Hongxue bowed and turned to leave, flying towards the direction of the north-central continent. Less than 4 hours after returning to the north-central continent, Zhu Hongxue met with Princess Mu Dan again. You want to reject me? Is that so? Mu Dan asked. Yes. Zhu Hongxue said. Mu Dan said, then, I might kill you. Unless you have a very reasonable reason. How did Yang Dingtian convince you? If his theory defeats mine, if it truly defeats mine and convinces me, then I won't kill you. If his theory isn't able to convince me, then I will kill you. Zhu Hongxue looked at Mu Dan and said, sect head only asked me if I'm done with the matter at hand? Challenging the god of chaos is the highest justice, do we have the qualifications to think about it now? Let's win the great war first, then talk about other things. Mu Dan was stunned, her beautiful face twitched slightly, and then she floated away. A few hours later, Mu Dan appeared in front of Yang Dingtian. You convinced Zhu Hongxue, a very sharp and real persuasion. Mu Dan said, now, it's your turn to convince me. Yang Dingtian said, I don't have anything to convince you. Mu Dan said, if you convince me, I won't do anything to your loyal subordinates in the future, and I won't give them second-class evil spirits. If you don't convince me, I will continue. Yang Dingtian said, is this a theoretical battle between the two of us? Yes. Mu Dan said. Yang Dingtian said, okay, go ahead. Mu Dan said, is there a god of chaos? Is the tragedy of this world's 200-year cycle controlled by him? Yang Dingtian nodded. Mu Dan said, then, challenging fate, challenging the god of chaos, is it the highest justice? Everything you are doing now, is it helping the god of chaos to control everyone's fate? Tell me yes or no. If yes, then you have lost this theoretical battle. If no, please convince me. If you can't, you still lose. Yang Dingtian looked at Mu Dan and said, first, a digression. I know that you are not my wife, Dongfang Bingling. What is this so-called first-class evil spirit will of yours? I have a general idea of what it is. Mu Dan said, continue. Yang Dingtian said, let me tell you a few things. First, the demon king Wendian keeps saying that he wants to challenge fate, to challenge the god of chaos. He wants to mobilize all the power of the plane, repeat the Naga Empire, create another great nirvana, destroy this world completely, and perish together with the so-called god of chaos, right? Mu Dan's face twitched and said, yes, as long as he can win, he can do anything. Are you going to criticize us on this? No, I only talk about justice to those who are righteous. I never talk about idealists, just like how I never talk about Justice Tiao Qi. Yang Dingtian said. Second, the Demon King Wentian keeps saying that he wants to challenge fate. After feigning defeat 200 years ago, he started to make a huge plan. The Underworld Empire, the Naga Empire, and the human countries. They all look so awesome and powerful. However, how do you know that his actions are not under the control of the God of Chaos? How can you be so sure that everything he does is not under the control of the God of Chaos? Mu Dan's face instantly turned pale, and her entire body started to tremble. Yang Dingtian continued, Third, I have no understanding of the so-called God of Chaos, so I will not express any opinions. Love or hate? I am not as narrow-minded as Wentian. You keep saying that you want to challenge the God of Chaos. Then I want to ask, do you know who the God of Chaos is? What is his surname? What is his name? If you don't know, then what are you talking about? Yang Dingtian raised his finger and said, Last point. No matter how noble they are all idiots who want to destroy the world. No matter how smart they are, no matter how deep their plans are, they are still idiots. Tell him that he will definitely understand the word idiot. Yang Dingtian sat down and looked at Mu Dan. I have finished. What do you think? Do you think that my theory won against you? Peony tightly gritted her jade teeth and nodded. She said, We won. Everyone says that you, Yang Dingtian, are talented. But are you actually very formidable? You can totally make me speechless. Yang Dingtian curled his lips and said, Wrong. The reason why I can win is because my heart has never changed, and my will has never changed. Do you think that just because I heard that I am a chess piece of the god, I will be in pain, lost? Please, don't be so pretentious. Alright, I won't play the lute to a cow. If you have nothing else to say and don't plan to kill me, you can leave. Mu Dan looked at Yang Dingtian and said, Goodbye. Then, she disappeared in front of Yang Dingtian. 2 days later, Princess Mu Dan of the Evil Ways appeared in the Vulture Palace. Wolingzi was extremely excited. He used the highest etiquette to welcome Princess Mu Dan's arrival. He used all means to express his loyalty. Then, Vulture knelt in front of Princess Mu Dan and begged, Please give me a second-class evil spirit. The Vulture Palace will forever be loyal to His Majesty the Demon King. Mu Dan looked at Vulture and said, Why do you want a second-class evil spirit? Vulture said, Because Wu Maji planted a third-class evil spirit in my body. I want to break away from her control over my life. Also, I want to become stronger and return the humiliation Yang Dingtian gave me double. I want to represent the evil ways and fight Yang Dingtian to the end. Mu Dan looked at Vulture for a long time and said, Yes, I came to the Vulture Palace this time to bestow a second-class evil spirit. However, the person I want to bestow it to is not you, but someone else. Who? Vulture said with a trembling voice. The person you imprisoned should have been the real master of the Vulture Palace. Mu Dan said. Vulture's delicate body trembled violently. The person Mu Dan was talking about was the spirit rabbit's grandfather. Chapter 781. Why? Vulture couldn't help but ask in a trembling voice, Why can't you give me a second-class evil spirit? Mu Dan looked at Vulture and said coldly, We gave you a second-class evil spirit to make you the leader of the Legion of Doom, and then you will become the great lord of the entire chaotic continent in the future, not for you to use public office to avenge private grudges. Vulture said, Then I won't use public office to avenge private grudges. I will obey all your orders. I just don't want my life to be in the hands of Yang Dingtian and Wu Maji. Mu Dan still shook her head and said, No, you don't have the qualifications to be the leader of the Legion of Doom. Vulture burst into tears and cried, I do. I'm a 1 in a billion celestial spiritualist. As long as I break through to the Grandmaster level, I have the potential to defeat a great Grandmaster. As long as I break through to the Great Grandmaster level, I have the ability to destroy thousands of troops. I'm a 1 in a billion celestial spiritualist. Mu Dan looked at Vulture and shook her head. Then you should continue to practice hard. In a few decades, when you are close to the semi-sage level, you will have the ability to destroy the world. You alone can fight against millions of troops and can turn the situation around. Vulture said, but everything will be over by then. No matter how powerful I become, I can't wait until then. Mu Dan glanced at Vulture and didn't say anything else. Mu Dan didn't exaggerate at all about the ability of a celestial spiritualist. Others, including Yang Dingtian, underestimated the power of a celestial spiritualist. But Mu Dan knew that not to mention the semi-sage level, even a 9-star 9th-class celestial spiritualist's combat power was extremely amazing. They could summon all the elemental energy within a radius of hundreds or thousands of miles. It meant that they could summon hundreds of thousands of elemental soldiers with a wave of their hand. An extremely powerful celestial spiritualist could completely dominate the entire battlefield. Mu Dan didn't even know how Vulture could have the talent of a celestial spiritualist. In the words of Earth, she was like a bug. Of course, Mu Dan didn't understand Earth's language. In the later martial arts civilization, there were occasionally people with the talent of a celestial spiritualist. But their cultivation wasn't high throughout their lives. It was very rare for someone like Vulture to reach martial venerable level before the age of 20. It was a pity that the girl in front of him had already lost her patience and only wanted to get it over with. In fact, the Demon King Wolf already knew about Vulture in front of him. This would suppress her STS Celestial Spiritualist, T.S. Demon Celestial Spiritualist, T.S.S.T.T.S., but it effect, Teat. Of be a Teat-S's because the. Evidently, Spirit Vulture was going to play a very important role in Demon King Wentian's battle against the God of Chaos. Mu Dan had asked Yongshi Wentian to bring Vulture back to the Little Western Paradise for protection. Yongshi Wentian said no. It was best to let her grow, as a celestial spiritualist. As long as she didn't die and continued to hate Yang Dingtian, that was the most important thing. Moreover, Vulture shouldn't be too strong now. Otherwise, Yang Dingtian would really try to kill her. Vulture didn't have any room to play in this war of destruction. The Temple of Annihilation would only use Vulture a long time later. Vulture didn't know how important she was to the Demon King Wentian. She was angry and disappointed because of Mu Dan's rejection. Wolingzi was filled with uneasiness. Mu Dan actually wanted to bestow a second-class evil spirit to that bastard, Wu Daozi. How terrible was that? He didn't have a spiritual child. After killing the parents of this vile spawn with great difficulty, he crippled this vile spawn. The reason why he didn't kill him was more because of his hatred and pranks. At that time, this bastard's father was the heir of the Vulture Palace. How glorious was that? How much shadow did it bring to him? Now, his son couldn't live and couldn't die. How happy was that? However, at this time, Wolingzi regretted it. Why didn't he kill this bastard? In fact, when the spirit rabbit was married to Yang Dingtian, he had already thought of killing this vile spawn. But he thought that holding him in his hands was also a hostage. If Spirit Rabbit was favored and wanted to take revenge on the Vulture Palace, because her grandfather was in his hands, she wouldn't shoot the rat for fear of breaking the vases. Therefore, Spirit Rabbit's grandfather came back from the gates of hell. Now, Wolingzi regretted it very much. Why didn't he kill that bastard? He hurriedly came to pay his respects to Peony and said in a hoarse voice, "My Spirit Vulture Palace, from top to bottom, still pledged allegiance to the Devil King. Why did the princess still bestow a second-grade evil spirit to that traitor?" Mu Dan said slowly, "Because in our hearts, he is the real heir of the Vulture Palace, and you are just a villain who betrayed the evil ways at the critical moment of the Doomsday War." Wolingzi's face suddenly twitched, and he said hoarsely, But I am the one who controls the Vulture Palace now. Princess, aren't you afraid that you will force me to Yang Dingtian's side by doing this?" Mu Dan looked at Wulingzi and sneered, "The power of your vulture palace is not worth mentioning in our eyes. You don't know how powerful our Legion of Doom is. You don't know that several of the most powerful planes in the world have fallen into our hands. Your mere vulture palace is nothing in my eyes." Then, Mu Dan continued, "Moreover, in our eyes, you are not a qualified commander at all. You are as timid as a mouse, greedy for life and afraid of death. In the face of Yang Dingtian, you are so cowardly. You said that the vulture palace is in your hands. As long as we bestow the second-class evil spirit to Wu Daozi and kill you, Wu Daozi can become the new master of the vulture palace, isn't it? I think your reputation in the vulture palace is not good." Wulingzi's face suddenly changed dramatically. Mu Dan immediately said the most terrible thing in his heart. His ruddy face instantly turned pale. Then, the light in his eyes changed. Finally, he said coldly, "Princess, you are now in our vulture palace. You are forcing us like this. Aren't you afraid that a cornered dog will jump over the wall and be harmed?" Mu Dan smiled and said, "You mean, you want to kill me?" Wulingzi said with a trembling voice, "I didn't say that." Mu Dan's beautiful face showed an incomparably gorgeous smile and said, "You mean, you want to kill me and then cooperate with Yang Dingtian?" Wulingzi's lips kept trembling and said, "I didn't say that, but you must never force a person into a dead end." Mu Dan's eyes turned cold and said coldly, "Can you kill me? You and everyone in the vulture palace can't kill me. On the contrary, it will be easy for us to kill you." Wulingzi suddenly trembled. His whole body seemed to have been pulled out of his skeleton. He almost directly collapsed to the ground. Suddenly, Wulingzi knelt down and kowtowed, "Princess, please forgive my disrespect on account of my old age and dizziness. 200 years ago, my brain was muddled. That's why I betrayed the evil ways. Please spare my life. Spare my life. In the future, I will be an ox and a horse. I will be loyal to His Majesty the Demon King. Please spare my life." Then, Wulingzi kowtowed with all his might. His originally white and fat forehead was instantly bleeding. His white hair and youthful complexion had completely disappeared. Mu Dan looked at him coldly and said, "Don't worry. We won't kill you. We can let you redeem yourself." Wulingzi cried with all his might and said with a trembling voice, "Thank you, Princess. Thank you, His Majesty the Demon King." Peony also gasped in admiration in her heart. There's actually such a weirdo in this world. A semi-sage level expert. He's one of the 5 semi-sage level experts in the human countries at present. But, he's actually so cowardly. He's so greedy for life. It's truly rare in the world. Mu Dan looked at Wulingzi who was kneeling on the ground and laughed mockingly. Then, she turned and left. Wulingzi directly collapsed to the ground. He kept muttering, "What do I do? What do I do?" Mu Dan met the true successor of the Vulture Palace, Wu Daozi, in a cave. Everyone in the Vulture Palace had the surname Ling. However, every generation of direct descendants of the palace master had the surname Wu. However, after Wulingzi usurped the position of palace master, this tradition was broken. Therefore, although the position of palace master was later given to Ling Chuzi still had the surname Ling. Wulingzi was also hesitating whether to pass the surname Wu to the vulture. It had been more than half a year since the spirit rabbit got married. Wu Daozi was still alive. His sea of qi was destroyed, and so were his meridians. He looked like he could die at any time, but he had such a tenacious vitality. He was only 1 generation younger than Wulingzi. This year, he was 100 years older than Wulingzi. He had been imprisoned for decades. It was really a miracle that he was still alive. At that time, after Wulingzi usurped the throne, he did not immediately kill Wu Daozi's parents. Instead, he gradually waited until his power was stable. Then, he raised his butcher's knife and killed almost all the direct descendants of the Vulture Palace one after another. Mu Dan looked at his incomparably old and weak figure and asked, "How can you live until now?" Wu Daozi coughed with all his might, as if his lungs were about to be coughed out. Using all his strength, he said, because Wu Lingzi gave me the life-continuing pill every year, a pill refined from living people. He didn't want me to die, so he kept torturing me. Mu Dan said, "What was your cultivation before your cultivation was destroyed?" Wu Daozi coughed violently and said, "At that time, when my parents were killed, they risked their lives to let me escape from the Vulture Palace. After that, I cultivated outside and gave birth to children outside. I cultivated desperately to make myself stronger. It was all for revenge and to take back the position of the Vulture Palace. When I was over 100 years old, my cultivation had reached the 9th level of the 9 Stars Great Grandmaster." Wu Lingzi was afraid. Although I hid my name, he still found me. He almost killed my whole family, destroyed my cultivation, and imprisoned my remaining direct descendants in the Vulture Palace. He killed them one by one in the cruelest way in front of me. After decades of killing, only my poor little granddaughter Tu and I are left. A 9 Stars Great Grandmaster was only one step away from the sage to be. It was equivalent to Zhu Qingzhu's cultivation. No wonder Wu Lingzi couldn't sit still. He, who had never left the Vulture Palace, had traveled tens of thousands of miles to get rid of Wu Daozi. Mu Dan said, "I am Princess Mu Dan of the Temple of Annihilation of Evil Ways. If I help you recover your cultivation and save you from hell, will you be loyal to me and the Temple of Annihilation?" The old man Wu Daozi coughed violently and said, I am a direct descendant of the Vulture Palace. I have always been loyal to the Temple of Annihilation. There is no such thing as whether I am willing or not. Well, please remember that once I give you the second-class evil spirit energy, your life and death will be in my hands, Mu Dan said. The old man Wu Daozi said, "If it weren't for the hatred in my heart, I would have already given up on life and death." "Well, I hope you can remember this," Mu Dan said. Then, a green first-class evil spirit tree slowly grew from the palm of her hand. On the first branch, there was already a face, which was Leng Ao. The remaining 4 branches were all empty. Mu Dan grabbed the second-class evil spirit branch and gently pulled it. In an instant, the second-class evil spirit was suddenly elongated. Whoosh! The second-class evil spirit's branch was thrown into Wu Daozi's head. In an instant, the second-class evil spirit energy turned into thousands of wisps and rushed into Wu Daozi's head. His incomparably old head released a bright light. Then, his face was changing. The wrinkles that were as old as tree bark disappeared, and smooth and compact skin and muscles grew quickly. The old and withered white hair quickly became glossy and black. The incomparably old face, which could hardly be seen clearly, instantly became handsome and infinitely young. The teeth that had been lost long ago all grew out one by one. Then, countless second-class evil spirit energy quickly rushed into his body. The withered body that was like a branch quickly became robust and plump. His destroyed profound veins were being repaired inch by inch at lightning speed. The destroyed Qi was filled up piece by piece. Boom, 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 then, the huge mountain he was on began to collapse completely. The huge mountain of several thousand meters disappeared completely in an instant. Then, the entire Vulture Palace, and even the entire southern barbarian continent, began to tremble violently. Monstrous tsunamis surged on the surrounding sea. Countless black vultures, as if they had received a terrible fright, fled frantically like dark clouds. The seabed around the southern barbarian continent was originally incomparably fragile. At this time, it triggered a huge underwater earthquake. Terrifying tsunamis madly surged in all directions. At the same time, all the profound energy within a few hundred miles frantically rushed into Wu Daozi's withered body. At this time, Wu Daozi's heaven and earth reaction when he devoured the second-class evil spirit was 10 times or 100 times that of Leng Ao and Ling Wu. Because his body's original cultivation was a 9-star 9th grade grandmaster, which was 100 times or 1,000 times that of Ling Ao and Ling Wu. Wulingzi, who was on a mountain peak not far away, looked on helplessly as a 3,000-meter-tall mountain completely collapsed. His face was filled with utter despair. After the entire mountain had completely collapsed, it became a flat land. A man and a woman stood tall among it. The woman was Mu Dan. The man, who was handsome and beautiful, was as clear as a god. He was the true successor of the Vulture Palace, the grandfather of the spirit rabbit, Wu Daozi. A new half-sage was born from this. Chapter 782. What was an evil spirit? This was a very important question for Yang Dingtian. As far as he was concerned, the evil spirit energy had two main characteristics. The first characteristic was that it could crazily break through the cultivation of the sea of qi in a short time. The second characteristic was that it was a completely independent life with an almost abnormal vitality. Moreover, according to the analysis of many people who activated the evil spirit and became powerful. First of all, it was not the evil spirit itself that had so much energy that it could make Wu Yuming break through from a 9-star 9th level grandmaster to a half-saint and make Ling Ao break through from a low-level grandmaster to a 9-star 9th level grandmaster. Instead, it was the moment when the evil spirit was parasitic in the body, it crazily devoured all the energy around it. In a very short time, it devoured an astronomical amount of qi energy, built the entire sea of qi, and made an amazing breakthrough in cultivation in a very short time. Therefore, a deeper analysis was needed. The two characteristics of the evil spirit were that it was almost immortal and had a powerful devouring ability. Moreover, it was certain that the evil spirit energy did not seem to exist before the last great war of extinction. At that time, the soul-devouring qi was the most evil and high-level energy in the entire evil ways. It was not until recent years that the evil spirit energy emerged in large quantities in this world. Could it be inferred that the demon king Wentian was the first owner of this evil spirit energy? Moreover, he regarded the evil spirit energy as a trump card to challenge the god of chaos. For this reason, he did not hesitate to feign defeat in the Great War of Extinction. Yang Dingtian clearly knew that if he wanted to defeat the demon king Wentian, he had to completely destroy the entire evil ways. The key was to understand and master the evil spirit and finally destroy it. The second half-saint expert appeared in the Vulture Palace. However, the people in the Vulture Palace were not happy at all. Instead, they fell into extreme uneasiness. Wu Lingzi seemed to have completely turned into a tortoise, completely staying in his own thatched hut. He did not say anything, nor did he do anything. He also did not greet Princess Peony. The vulture was the same. He stayed in his room all the time and did not take a step out. All the experts of the spiritual Vulture Palace fell into a state of panic. Everyone was watching. No one dared to act rashly. They didn't even dare to speak loudly. Wulingzi was more than 200 years old and had accumulated his power for a long time. Moreover, all of Wulingzi's experts and disciples were born during Wulingzi's era. Therefore, although he knew that Wulingzi had usurped the throne, he did not feel anything. Although they knew that Wu Daozi represented the direct power of the Vulture Palace, the people of the Vulture Palace did not have any special feelings for him. The only thing everyone in the Vulture Palace had was mixed feelings about Wulingzi. Of course, these complex emotions were mostly fear and dissatisfaction. After Wu Daozi had broken through to the half-saint realm, he hadn't done anything. He hadn't gone to seek revenge on Wulingzi, nor had he tried to rope in anyone from the Vulture Palace. It was as if he was invisible. However, he was no longer imprisoned in the cave like before, living a life worse than death. Now, no matter where he went in the Vulture Palace, almost everyone retreated in fear and respect. In short, no matter what, Wu Daozi had directly become the second person in the Vulture Palace, second only to Wulingzi. Moreover, it was very likely that he would go against the current and take back his own position. "Your Highness, what should I do now? Wu Daozi asked. Mu Dan said, you don't need to do anything now. When I need you to do something, I'll tell you. Wu Daozi bowed and said, yes, Your Highness. Mu Dan turned slightly and said, then, I'll take my leave. Farewell, Your Highness, Wu Daozi said. Mu Dan left the Vulture Palace with Leng Ao. Leng Ao asked, who should we give the third second-class evil spirit to? Mu Dan said, you'll know when you see it. 5 days later, Yang Dingtian rode on a demon eagle and returned to the Skull Hall in the Forbidden Continent Sea area. Because in a few days, the Council of Light's cultivation group would finish the first stage of cultivation. In the floating palace at the end of the first world, everyone would face a powerful breakthrough. In fact, although the first hard rock continent was the simplest, the breakthrough it brought was almost the biggest. After 1 day and 2 nights, Yang Dingtian appeared in the Skull Hall. At this moment, the 40-odd experts of the Radiant Parliament who were bitterly cultivating in the main hall were in pretty good condition. They were exhausted to the extreme, and almost all of them had lost weight. Their faces were filled with extreme exhaustion, and even despair. But at least none of them had fallen into the deep space in the illusion. 4 days later. As expected, the group of Dishi Bian, Ling Wu, and Wu Maji was the first to reach the end of the first world. Because Yang Dingtian saw an expression of incomparable enjoyment on their faces. It was the feeling of being baptized by incomparably dense profound energy. At the same time, in reality, a few powerful energy light pillars suddenly shot down from the dome of the Skull Hall and directly entered the bodies of the 3 people. This should be the secret of the dense profound energy in the floating palace in the illusion. In the Forbidden Continent's illusion, those floating palaces all possessed astonishingly dense and pure profound energy. In reality, there really was such astonishing profound energy in reality, which provided everyone with a breakthrough in their cultivation. It was just that the profound energy was actually injected into everyone's body with such precision. It was really amazing. Not long after, Dongfang Minmi's group also entered the floating palace. Next was the 3rd group, the 4th group, the 5th group. Finally, on the 25th day of cultivation in the Forbidden Continent's illusion, the last group also reached the end. Now, Yang Dingtian could be sure that there would be more than one floating palace at the northern end of the hard rock continent. While they were absorbing profound energy in the floating palace, Yang Dingtian closely observed everyone's reaction and counted the number of times they broke through. First was Dishi Bian. When she left the Ghost Hell region, she was a 7-star level 8 Great Grandmaster. At this time, more than a year had passed since she started cultivating in the Ghost Hell region. Before she came to the Forbidden Continent to cultivate, her cultivation was already a 9-star level 1 Great Grandmaster. Yang Dingtian noticed that she had broken through the first stage of the Forbidden Continent's hard rock plains twice. Therefore, she was already a 9-star level 3 Great Grandmaster. As for Wu Maji, she was a 7-star level 1 Great Grandmaster when she left the Ghost Hell region. Before she came to the Forbidden Continent's illusion to cultivate, she was an 8-star level 8 Great Grandmaster. After the end of the hard rock continent, she had broken through 4 times. Therefore, she was already a 9-star level 2 Great Grandmaster. Before Ling Wu came to the Forbidden Continent's illusion, she was an 8-star level 9 Great Grandmaster. She had also broken through 4 times. Therefore, she was already a 9-star level 3 Great Grandmaster. There was also his master, Dongfang Minmi. When he obtained Ling Qingqian's body, he was only a beginner Great Grandmaster. During these years, he was incomparably busy. Therefore, he had very little time to cultivate. However, almost 3 years had passed since his resurrection. Before he came to the Forbidden Continent's illusion, his cultivation was a 3-star level 5 Great Grandmaster. As for the first stage of cultivation in the hard rock continent, he had broken through 2 times and became a 5-star level 1 Great Grandmaster. Of course, there was also good news. Qiu Wanjie had already broken through to the 9-star level 9 Great Grandmaster. He was only half a step away from becoming a Great Grandmaster. After leaving the Forbidden Continent's illusion, young Ding Tian would probably be able to help him break through to become a great grandmaster. As for the others, after the first stage of cultivation in the Hard Rock continent, all of them had huge breakthroughs. It was believed that after the 4 stages of cultivation in the Forbidden Continent ended, there would be a few more great grandmaster experts in the Council of Light. After everyone had broken through, they passed through the long illusory void and entered the second world, the lava plains. It was a lava plains that was a few 100,000 miles wide. This stage should be the most difficult one of all. Moreover, the ice attribute experts played a crucial role in this stage. Of course, the number of ice attribute experts in the Council of Light was less than half. Therefore, in the second stage of cultivation, it was impossible to completely rely on the ice attribute experts' solidified lava to create a path. Moreover, the fire attribute experts couldn't lose the opportunity to cultivate. Therefore, the Council of Light spent an astronomical amount of money in the Sky Demon City to purchase many ice attribute mystic talismans. Although they weren't as precious as the lightning attribute mystic talismans, the price of each ice attribute mystic talisman was similarly astronomical. Moreover, the efficiency of mystic chi was rather low. In order to ensure that they successfully passed the second stage, young Ding Tian had no choice but to prepare a lot of unfreezing water for the fire attribute experts. Then, he used the energy of the ice attribute mystic talismans to maintain the temperature of the unfreezing water. Then, he used the unfreezing water to create a path through the solidified lava. The entire process was a huge waste of mystic chi for the fire attribute experts. However, this was cultivation, and there was no need to be afraid of waste. At the beginning of the lava plains, young Ding Tian clearly saw everyone's pain and hardship. In the beginning, they were completely drenched in sweat. Then, there was no sweat at all. If they didn't replenish their elixirs in time, and if they didn't circulate their mystic chi to resist the terrifying high temperature, they would have died from dehydration. However, they were fully prepared in the end. Therefore, it looked very shocking. However, there wasn't any danger in the end. Moreover, after 3 days, more than a dozen groups of cultivation had entered a steady progress. The 3 days now were equivalent to a month. Dishi Bian, Wu Maji, and Ling Wu were considered to be in the best condition. The others had already lost a lot of weight. The second stage, the lava plains, was a few 100,000 miles wide. At that time, young Ding Tian, King Demon Vulture, and Ling Bai's team had walked for a full year in the Taboo Continent's illusory realm. In reality, it had also been a full month. It was very obvious that these dozen groups had also taken around this time. Perhaps it was slightly earlier. Young Ding Tian stayed in the Skull Hall for another 3 to 4 days. Seeing that more than a dozen groups were still in a steady state of cultivation, young Ding Tian left the Skull Hall again and returned to the central capital. 2 days and 1 night later. Not long after young Ding Tian arrived at the central capital, he saw a handsome middle-aged man. Your Excellency young Ding Tian, Wu Daozi of the Vulture Palace is here to pay a visit. At the same time, Mu Dan found the third evil spirit bestower. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.